Hello everyone, welcome to Podcast Buddhism. Today, we are delving into a profound topic that lies at the very heart of Buddhist teachings, the Four Noble Truths, four supreme truths to attain nirvana in Buddhism. These foundational principles outline the path to enlightenment and liberation from suffering, offering profound insights into the nature of existence and the path to spiritual awakening. Let's explore each of these truths and understand their significance in the journey towards nirvana. 1. The first truth is suffering dukkha. Buddhism is a path of realism, neither pessimistic nor optimistic, and not bound by supernatural illusions but rooted in reality. The Buddha did not deny the existence of happiness in life, whether it be material or spiritual, across all social classes. However, no joy or happiness stays with us forever, it comes and goes. Because what is born of conditions will also perish quickly, human life is a continuous search for one happiness after another. Thus, what we call happiness may actually be suffering, similar to a sugar-coated pill that reveals its bitterness once the sweetness dissolves. Kings and queens have their own royal sufferings, while the poor also bear their own life's burdens, no less severe. In life, it's not always necessary to shed tears to feel ultimate pain. Sometimes, silent suffering can be the most excruciating. The pain is such that even the slightest touch feels like a sharp sting. So, what sufferings did the Buddha speak of? The language used by the Buddha to teach was not Pali but Magadhi. The Indian language is very complex. Even today, there are nearly 15 recognized languages, such as Sanskrit, Urdu, Bengali, and Hindi. Pali is not part of the Indic language group but a dialect of central India. The upper class and royalty of ancient India spoke Sanskrit, while the common people spoke Magadhi, the Buddha's native tongue. And the lowest class spoke Paishachi. During his lifetime, the Buddha gave numerous teachings during long, walking journeys across North India for almost half a century, but no one thought to compile them. After his passing, his disciples felt the profound absence of their master and decided to compile his teachings into scriptures. Thus, Buddhist scriptures were orally transmitted for nearly 500 years after the Buddha's death, relying entirely on the memory of those who recited them. The Buddha did not speak Vietnamese, Chinese, English, or French, but Indian languages. In Pali or Sanskrit scriptures, the Buddha used the term dukkha, making Buddhism sound overly negative and passive. In reality, the meaning of dukkha is vast, encompassing various aspects of psychological and physiological changes that cause disturbances, worries, and sorrows. Dukkha includes both the happiness and aspirations in life. In general, all mental activities such as joy, anger, love, hate, affection, desire, joy, anger, love, hate, sorrow, happiness, desire, are all considered dukkha. Any worldly happiness eventually leads to boredom, disappointment, dissatisfaction, and unfulfillment. Happiness is like a shadow, never graspable. The pursuit of happiness is always challenging. When obtained, it comes and goes quickly, leaving people in a constant search. This endless pursuit is never called happiness. In summary, all mental variations that give us feelings of happiness or suffering originate from external conditions. Truly, there is no inherent suffering or happiness in the world. When there is suffering or happiness, the ego is present, meaning I suffer or I am happy. Therefore, if there is no I, who suffers or who is happy? It is merely the sensations of the five aggregates. No one actually endures suffering or enjoys happiness. Suffering manifests in many forms, varying from physiological to psychological states. Regardless of how suffering changes, whether people live in any society or engage in any occupation, it generally falls into 3 kinds of suffering and 8 types of suffering. 1. 3 types of suffering. Suffering of suffering. This refers to ongoing suffering that piles upon itself, one sorrow following another. If we do not wish to invite suffering into our lives, others cannot cause suffering for us because our minds cannot let go. Remember, when you are happy, know that this joy is not eternal. Conversely, when you are suffering, know that this pain is also not permanent. Suffering of change. This refers to the suffering from the inherent instability and impermanence in life. Everything changes, causing suffering due to attachment and desire. All-pervasive suffering. This refers to the subtle, underlying suffering present in all conditioned existence due to the inherent instability and impermanence in life. 2. 8 types of suffering. Birth is suffering. Being born involves pain and struggle. Aging is suffering. The inevitable process of aging brings discomfort and deterioration. Sickness is suffering. Illness causes physical and mental pain. Death is suffering. The end of life is accompanied by pain and separation. Sorrow, lamentation, pain, grief, and despair are suffering. Emotional distress is a source of suffering. Association with the unpleasant is suffering. Being with what is disliked causes discomfort. Separation from the pleasant is suffering. Being apart from what is loved causes distress. Not getting what one wants is suffering. Desires and wants that are not fulfilled lead to dissatisfaction. These sufferings accompany us in our journey through life. The wise quickly realize this and seek enlightenment, while the ignorant continue to plunge into the vast ocean of existence, becoming lifelong slaves to worldly desires and attachments. The term suffering does not only describe physical pain or mental discomfort, but also includes anything that can cause or result in suffering. The truth about suffering teaches that due to the principle of impermanence, all forms of pleasure, even in a heavenly paradise, are subject to change and destruction. All forms of existence carry the seeds of suffering. Fearing suffering, people strive to seek pleasure, not realizing that pleasure deceives and betrays them. The more they pursue pleasure, the more disappointment they face, and thus they sink deeper into the ocean of suffering. In other words, suffering is the state of dissatisfaction and unfulfillment that makes people uncomfortable. Even the happiness pursued by people cannot last, as the conditions that create it are constantly changing, making no happiness truly lasting. The happiness we desire only exists temporarily, and the objects of our longing are merely transient and ephemeral, appearing and disappearing just like trying to hold a shadow or grasp a fragrance. Even geniuses often grapple with existential suffering, weariness, and loneliness. As Ernest Hemingway once wrote, "Happiness in intelligent people is the rarest thing I know." 2. The second noble truth, the cause of suffering, Samudaya. Suffering is the craving for pleasures, desires, passions, and sensual indulgence, which arise and develop wherever there is attachment, satisfaction, or happiness. Typically, we measure suffering by our feelings, but feelings themselves are not suffering. Rather, the cause of suffering is the clinging to desires. This means that desires themselves do not inherently cause suffering, but the attachment to and grasping of these desires do. Every day our eyes see, ears hear, noses smell, mouths taste, and bodies touch countless desires that Buddhism calls delusions. Seeing a beautiful, expensive car ignites passion and pleasure. Hearing praise brings happiness. Drinking a good wine or eating delicious food brings a sense of euphoria. However, these pleasant feelings or happiness do not inherently cause us suffering. Suffering begins to form in the mind once we wish to retain, prolong, or chase after these pleasures. In the past, the Buddha and the saints still lived and operated within this world. They experienced flavors in food, smelled pleasant or foul odors, tasted salty, sweet, sour, and spicy flavors, just as all human beings do. So how do enlightened beings differ from us, or how do we differ from them? The liberated person still experiences tastes as good or bad, salty or bland, meaning their senses are fully functional. The difference between the sate and the ordinary person is that the sate does not cling to the good or bad taste. They eat simply to satisfy hunger. They eat good food, they eat bad food, without demanding it to be a certain way. Meanwhile, we only prefer delicious and exotic foods because they bring us pleasure and happiness. We want to prolong these moments of happiness and peace as much as possible. When the mind seeks after sensual desires, this is the cause of suffering. In other words, whenever we see, hear, taste, smell, or touch something, we know it very clearly, but we should not cling to these sensations. Currently, due to conditions, we have good food to enjoy. When the moment passes, the conditions end, and there is no more attachment or craving, the cause of suffering does not arise. Remember, material wealth in the world does not belong to us. It only provides for us. Therefore, we do not need to discard it. What we need to discard are the rigid attachments and mistaken thoughts about the self. Thus, knowing and experiencing things without clinging to them means the cause of suffering will no longer exist. Desires are things brought about by external conditions and do not inherently exist within us. If we do not see money, the fire of greed does not ignite. If we do not see a beautiful woman, the heart of the infatuated man does not flutter. But how do we let go of desires? The Buddha taught that letting go does not mean destroying or discarding, but simply letting it be, and the desire will pass. We need only mindfulness to recognize clearly that it is a desire, it is greed, it is anger, it is delusion, and then let it go without clinging or attachment, and it will disappear. When seeing money, this arises, the fire of greed ignites, that arises. Now if we no longer cling to or crave money, this ceases. The fire of greed is extinguished, that ceases. By practicing letting go, the cause of suffering will cease. Usually, sufferings arise from the constraints of ideals and the complexities we create for ourselves. Sometimes we are too strict, criticizing everything, including ourselves. In reality, life in the world we live in never go entirely according to our wishes. Therefore, if we practice proper letting go, the cause of suffering will permanently leave us. In conclusion, the immediate cause of countless sufferings is the impermanence of all things. This impermanence leads to birth, aging, sickness, and death. But the deep-rooted cause is craving. Craving changes unpredictably, from craving sights, sounds, smells, tastes, touches, to craving mental objects. It transforms extraordinarily from one form to another, enticing the human mind into its grip. Craving gives rise to sorrow and grief. Craving gives rise to fear. For one freed from craving, there is no sorrow, no fear. 3. The third noble truth, the cessation of suffering, Nirodha. When a practitioner completely eliminates suffering, meaning all seeds of greed, anger, ignorance, and craving are fully extinguished, they achieve the serene and free state of nirvana. Nirvana is not a metaphysical realm or a celestial paradise somewhere in the universe. It is a state of purity and freedom, reflecting the mind of a person who leads a holy, virtuous, righteous, and saintly life, free from the afflictions of suffering. In other words, Nirodha is a mental state where desires and evil deeds are eradicated. A person living in this state is considered fully liberated and has mastery over life and death. Such a person is the happiest in this world. During the Buddha's time, a Brahmin hermit once met Sariputta and asked, "Nirvana, Nirvana, my friend Sariputta, what is it?" Venerable Sariputta replied, "The extinction of greed, the extinction of anger, the extinction of ignorance. That is what people call nirvana." Speaking of nirvana, the Buddha also taught, if beings have abandoned pleasures and desires and are filled with wisdom, they have attained the liberation from birth and death, the tranquility. They have reached nirvana, which is the eternal, everlasting state right here in this life. Thus, nirvana is not a realm or a place, and of course, nirvana is not non-existence. Clearly, nirvana cannot be described using human language or words, so does nirvana truly exist or not? In the Milindapana, when King Milinda asked a similar question, Venerable Nagasena replied, "Your Majesty, nirvana indeed exists and can only be comprehended with wisdom. If beings maintain a pure and upright mind, free from karmic hindrances and lowly desires, they will see nirvana." The king requested an example. Venerable Nagasena continued, "Your Majesty knows something called the wind, but do you know its color, shape, thickness, or length?" The king replied, "The wind is invisible and formless. How can it be pointed out? Though it cannot be pointed out, it still exists." Now Venerable Nagasena concluded, "Similarly, Your Majesty, nirvana truly exists but cannot be described using words or language to show its form. So how can one know nirvana?" The king asked again. "Through the elimination of afflictions and karmic hindrances, by achieving peace and tranquility, one attains nirvana." Then Venerable Nagasena continued, "Just like a person who falls into a blazing fire, if they manage to escape to a cool place, they will feel immense relief. Similarly, one who escapes the fire of greed, anger, and ignorance will enjoy the serene happiness of nirvana. Just like a person who escapes unwholesome thoughts, they will experience the bliss of nirvana. Finally, those who overcome the fears of birth, aging, sickness, and death will enjoy the bliss of nirvana." In daily life, there are moments when we are free from concerns about beauty, wealth, fame, and gain, and we are not overwhelmed by greed, anger, and ignorance. During those moments, our minds are clear and light, and we are living in nirvana. Unfortunately, nirvana comes to us very briefly because when our minds return to the practical realities of life, nirvana vanishes and worries and afflictions creep in. Therefore, the serenity and freedom of nirvana lie in our hands. And of course, worries and afflictions also stem from us. For the fourth noble truth, the path to liberation, Magga. The path to liberation is the way that leads practitioners back to a moral, humanistic life that does not cause suffering to oneself, others, or all beings. Among these paths, the Noble Eightfold Path is considered the exclusive way to elevate life and achieve the ultimate goal of liberation and enlightenment. Right view, Samudaya, is the solid foundation upon which the house of the Noble Eightfold Path is built. There is no enduring house of the Noble Eightfold Path without diligently practicing right view daily to help us see and understand correctly. Right view allows us to clearly see that this worldly universe is formed through the aggregation of causes and conditions, arising from countless interdependent origins from time immemorial, rather than being created by a supreme deity. Modern science discovers that the universe originated from a Big Bang from a singularity about 13.7 billion years ago, forming various galaxies. Before 1913, science believed the universe was limited to the Milky Way. It wasn't until Edwin Hubble measured the distance to the Andromeda Galaxy, about 900,000 light-years away, that it was understood the universe consists of many galaxies. In 1965, in the Bell Telephone Laboratories, scientists Arno Penzias and Robert Wilson accidentally discovered the cosmic microwave background radiation from the Big Bang 13.7 billion years ago, supporting the Big Bang theory. Currently, the universe is still expanding until all hot celestial bodies like the Sun completely burn out their fuel, such as hydrogen and helium, and the universe will fall into darkness and coldness. This phenomenon is called the Big Crunch, where the universe will eventually contract back to a singularity. Thus, the universe and the world arise and perish in an endless cycle from beginningless time to endless time. Where is the starting point, and when will it end? In ancient times, when science was still in its infancy, religious beliefs were very strong. Today, as science progresses significantly, providing a clearer understanding of the world and human life, religious beliefs, including folk beliefs, are increasingly narrowing. Therefore, the Buddha reminded beings not to hastily believe anything. Believe nothing, no matter where you read it or who said it, no matter if I have said it, unless it agrees with your own reason and your own common sense, Buddha, but to use wisdom to impartially examine and practice right view. Today's Buddhism is mixed with too many folk beliefs, causing it to lose its direction. Wrong beliefs are more harmful than no beliefs at all. In the West, religious faith in places like the United States, Europe, and even Australia is declining, especially among the youth. They are seeking a new direction in life, and many who do not believe in God, atheism, and agnosticism are increasingly turning to study, learn, and practice Buddhist teachings. They find more comfort and happiness practicing the Noble Eightfold Path and meditation methods. They feel more confident in their new way of life because they are the captains of their destiny, not anyone else. Conversely, young Vietnamese people in the United States and worldwide know little about the Dharma beyond chanting and vegetarian meals. Without understanding and practicing the true Dharma, when the older generation passes away, Vietnamese Buddhism abroad might disappear like the Chinese generation in the United States 50 years ago, regardless of how many large temples or Buddha statues exist. If the young generation practices the Noble Eightfold Path in their lives, they will reap many benefits. Their families will live harmoniously, and everyone will live ethically, resulting in more happiness and peace. On the other hand, if they do not understand the Noble Eightfold Path, they are easily converted, thinking all religions are good. Buddhism is a religion without blind faith because it is not a system of beliefs and rituals, nor does it accept the existence of one or more deities who control human destiny and whom humans must obey, serve, and worship. Therefore, the Noble Eightfold Path never includes right faith. Hence, faith in Buddhism is entirely different from faith in theistic religions, monotheism, or polytheism. The first branch of the Noble Eightfold Path is right view, meaning one must see and understand things accurately, clearly, and impartially. When one sees and understands accurately, faith is no longer necessary. Conversely, without accurate understanding, leaning one way or another is called wrong view. Thus, Buddhism is the religion to come and see, not to come and believe. So faith is not essential in Buddhism, and Buddhist disciples do not need faith but only diligence. Buddhism does not demand blind faith from its followers. Therefore, mere belief has no place. Instead, trust based on understanding does. The Buddha affirmed, "I am not a god, nor a deity, but just a human who has conquered the world." The Buddha conquered the world but did not need a throne to rule or subjects to honor. He lived freely with 3 robes in a bowl, but conquering one's mind is the greatest victory. The Buddha is merely a guide, and his teachings are the torch of wisdom, helping beings find the path to enlightenment and liberation for themselves. To explain the relationship between faith and wisdom, the Buddha taught, "A person with faith but no wisdom often increases ignorance. A person with wisdom but no faith often increases wrong views." Wisdom here must be understood as the ability to scrutinize and judge all matters. Therefore, if wisdom does not believe in the right dharma, the practitioner easily falls into wrong views, increasing arrogance and obstinacy, failing to see their own mistakes. Conversely, a person with faith in the right dharma but lacks wisdom to understand and discern properly easily falls into ignorance and superstition. From ancient times to now, reason and faith have always opposed each other. Reason uses logic and reflection based on experience and observation, while faith lies within the realm of emotions, which cannot be reasoned or explained. Thus, in revealed religions, faith in God is felt with the heart, not understood with the mind. Love felt with the heart is based on emotions and is very volatile, sometimes right, sometimes wrong, sometimes love, sometimes hate. Conversely, compassion arising from clear wisdom is based on objective equality, without favoritism. Additionally, in revealed religions, miracles and supernatural powers are crucial. In contrast, the Buddha, having attained the 6 supernatural powers, regarded them as insignificant and inappropriate because the most important thing is cultivating wisdom for liberation. In Buddhism, people with miraculous powers are not necessarily enlightened or saints. According to the Buddha, the highest and most wonderful miracle is transforming an ignorant person into a wise one. Therefore, happiness or suffering depends on humans, not on any absolute deity. Since humanity appeared on this planet, countless ancient civilizations have risen, from Egypt to Greece, Rome, and up to the present. The concept of God has fluctuated, changing from monotheism to polytheism, depending on the era. If God is omnipotent, why does he allow humans to shape him according to their wishes? Thus, we easily conclude that along the course of human evolution, humans created God, not the other way around. Evidence is that the Chinese God is not the same as the Jewish God or the Indian God, so today, each religion creates its own God. Christianity has God, Islam has Allah, Hinduism has Brahman, China has Jade Emperor, leading to wars, hostility, and killing each other for the exclusive right to a non-existent God. During the Buddha's time, Brahmanism believed that the soul, called Atman, individual soul, was created by the supreme deity, and all living beings on this planet had souls. The soul transfers from one body to another continuously until liberation, when the individual soul merges with the universal soul Brahman, the supreme deity, or the soul of the universe. When Buddhism emerged, the Buddha denied that humans were created by God and also rejected the concept of the soul, Atman, given by God. Therefore, during the Buddha's time, there was a clear distinction between Buddhism and Brahmanism. Buddhism advocated atheism, the elimination of the ego, self-liberation, equality, and lacked complex rituals and sacrifices. The Buddha did not accept the concept of an immortal soul or a permanent ego. Conversely, Brahmanism believed in the existence of the ego, and upon death, the ego merges with the universal soul for liberation. Therefore, people pray to the supreme deity, believe in the gods, and make offerings for blessings and forgiveness. In the Dhammapada, verse 145, the Buddha affirmed, "By oneself is evil done, by oneself is one defiled, by oneself is evil left undone, by oneself is one made pure. Purity and impurity depend on oneself. No one can purify another." After attaining the 4th meditation, the Buddha, with insight and the wisdom of a fully enlightened one, saw that all beings in the universe are the results of causes and conditions. This exists because that exists. This arises because that arises. This ceases because that ceases. One cause leads to another, forming the world and human life, without any creator. Thus, the Buddha denied the existence of God in life, and of course, without God, there is no one to give anyone a soul. According to theistic religions, the soul is an eternal entity given by God to humans, capable of transferring from one body to another or from one realm to another. In contrast, in Buddhism, there is no mind, so how can there be a soul? The mind, according to Buddhism, is called consciousness. Consciousness is the awareness that constantly changes based on the psychological and physiological transformations of humans whenever the six senses contact the six objects. For example, the eye sees forms, the ear hears sounds, the nose smells scents, the tongue tastes flavors, the body feels touch, or the mind cognizes objects, bringing countless thoughts to the mind, giving us awareness. Buddhism uses the term moment, ksana, to refer to the smallest unit of time, and a moment occurs very quickly because each blink of an eye can contain hundreds of moments, similar to the smallest unit of time measurement today, which is the second. When enlightened, the Buddha, with insight and the wisdom of a fully enlightened one, saw that sentient beings do not have a mind but only a continuous stream of thoughts connecting with one another, giving us the illusion of having a mind. For example, in one moment, the eye sees a form, giving us the awareness of form, eye consciousness. In the next moment, the ear hears a sound, giving us the awareness of sound, ear consciousness. The following awareness replaces or follows the previous awareness, continuously arising and ceasing, forming a stream of consciousness, but there is no fixed mind. The mind after replaces the mind before, continuously flowing in our soul. Thus, consciousness in Buddhism is the continuous flow of thoughts, moments. Due to the mistaken belief of having a mind, people think there is an ego within. Now, without a mind, how can there be an ego or a self, which is completely selfless? For example, at night, looking at the highway in the United States, we see the lights forming a continuous flow like a winding river. If we remove all the cars, the river of light will no longer exist. In other words, without the lights from the cars connecting, there would never be such a long stretch of light. The human mind is similar, although each moment of thought is swift. Continuously connecting those moments forms a stream of consciousness, which people mistakenly believe to be the mind. Listen to the record in the Gateless Gate of the first conversation between Bodhidharma and Huike. Bodhidharma was sitting facing the wall. Huike stood in the snow, drew a knife, cut off his arm, and said, "I cannot pacify my mind, please pacify it for me." Bodhidharma said, "Bring your mind here, and I will pacify it." Huike replied, "I cannot find my mind." Bodhidharma answered, "I have already pacified your mind. The past mind is gone, the future mind has not yet come, the present mind is restless and constantly changing." So what mind was Huike searching for? Because of the mistaken belief in having a mind, the Buddha taught, the mind is the greatest deceiver. Others may deceive you for a moment, but it will deceive you for a lifetime. If God is omnipotent and omnibenevolent, why did he create a world full of sins and suffering? Why did he create numerous natural disasters, destruction, and the killing of sentient beings? Where is his compassion? Can prayers reduce natural disasters, epidemics, wars, or human suffering? Therefore, Buddhism denies the existence of deities in human life. According to the spirit of Buddhism, humans must solve their own problems like war and peace, happiness and suffering. War or peace is determined by humans, not by any gods or heavens. If humans live with tolerance and love, they transform war into peace. Conversely, if leaders pursue dark ambitions, peace turns into war and killing. Additionally, the movement of the earth, volcanoes, tornadoes, and the law of impermanence, birth, existence, decay, and death cause harm to humans. Generally, it is due to human greed, destroying their environment through wars, nuclear experiments, deforestation, and pollution, creating dangerous chain reactions for humanity. Humans, to satisfy their greed, go against nature by extracting millions of resources from the earth and sea, from diamonds to gold, silver, aluminum, iron, gas, and oil, and releasing millions of tons of toxic waste, causing suffering through natural disasters, earthquakes, tsunamis, floods, and droughts. Thus, humans cannot believe in a deity who would heartlessly punish and destroy humanity, causing widespread suffering and death. A massive earthquake occurred on April 25, 2015, in Nepal. with a magnitude of 7.8 on the Richter scale, 80 kilometers northwest of the capital Kathmandu, killing over 8,000 people and injuring over 18,000. Subsequent smaller earthquakes caused further terror. More than 2 weeks later, on May 12, 2015, another earthquake with a magnitude of 7.3 struck 83 kilometers east of Kathmandu, causing more damage. Nepal, although the birthplace of the Buddha, has only about 20% Buddhist population, with 80% being Hindu. According to Hindu customs, every 5 years, Nepal organizes a sacrificial ceremony, killing 250,000 animals, mostly buffaloes, goats, and birds. In the 2014 sacrificial ceremony, over 6,000 innocent buffaloes were beheaded, their blood staining an entire field red. Once, Prince Siddhartha was traveling to Rajgir and encountered a flock of sheep being led to the city for King Bimbisara's sacrificial ceremony. He went straight to the altar, where the king and Brahmin priests were preparing to sacrifice a sheep to the deities. The prince untied the animal and preached to everyone. Everyone loves life, yet everyone enjoys killing. Everyone wants to create life. He spoke with deep compassion. Even though all beings are different, life is one. You cannot wash away your sins with the blood of animals. Asking the gods for forgiveness is futile. If the gods are benevolent, they will not forgive such evil deeds. If you commit evil, no matter how many animals you sacrifice, you cannot rid yourself of sin. However, whether good or evil, the gods will not forgive anyone. The sin of a person must be borne by themselves. That is the law of cause and effect. No one can escape it. The more you kill, the more disasters you bring upon yourself. Hearing this, the Brahmin priests took off their ceremonial robes, their hands still stained with blood. Hundreds of sheep were released, joyfully running through the streets as if escaping from hell created by human ignorance. The king then ordered an edict to be engraved on stone and carved into wood. From ancient times until now, we have committed a great sin by killing animals for sacrifice. But from today onwards, no one in the land shall spill the blood of any animal, for all beings share one life. Remember that blessings will come to the virtuous. From Teachings of Benevolent Life. When understanding this, humans need not fear, worship, or pray to deities anymore. Buddhism is neither a metaphysical path nor a ceremonial path. To Buddhism, the Buddha is a teacher, the one who discovered the path to liberation. Therefore, those who wish to escape from suffering should follow the path he walked. The Buddha is only a guide. Whether to follow the path is up to sentient beings. To achieve results, beings must be self-reliant and practice to reach liberation, not relying on the Buddha or any deities. In summary, Buddhism is not a religion of trade, magic, or promises. Liberation and enlightenment, or the serene peace of nirvana, come from beings themselves, not granted by the Buddha. Although Buddhism is the religion of compassion, wisdom, and courage, if people do not believe in compassion to love, bring joy, and relieve suffering to help sentient beings, in the ability to develop wisdom to realize the truth and understand the true nature of human existence in the universe, and in the courage to overcome storms and win over their ignorance and afflictions, and only want to pray to deities for happiness, then the path they walk is certainly not Buddhism. Therefore, without right view, living in ignorance, mistaking suffering for happiness, and the false for the true, we often face 5 wrong views. 1. View of self. Mistaking the body and mind for the self, believing that the body and mind are oneself and belong to oneself. The body and mind are merely the workings of the 5 aggregates: form, feeling, perception, mental formations, and consciousness. The body is the form composed of earth, water, wind, and fire. Thus, human life is the operation of the 5 aggregates, with nothing being the self or belonging to the self. 2. Extreme views. Due to erroneous perceptions of the self, 2 extremes arise. One believes that the self perishes with death, which is annihilationism, Uchedavada, or one believes that the self remains unchanged after death, which is eternalism, Sasadavada. The Buddhist middle way transcends these extremes, acknowledging that existence leads to decay and death, but death is not absolute non-existence, as decay leads to new existence, a continuous cycle of birth and death. 3. Wrong views. Believing that life has no cause and effect and no retribution for good or evil deeds. believing that humans are creations of God or that all events in life are predetermined by divine will, believing that illness or disaster is due to the punishment of gods or spirits. All these fixed views are called wrong views, living in delusion and darkness, causing life to lack clear direction. 4. Attachment to views. Some practitioners can easily see the errors in the view of self, extreme views, and wrong views, as they lead people to see life through delusional lenses, relying on erroneous views, causing life to become more chaotic. However, some still cling to and believe in these wrong views, unable to distinguish right from wrong, practicing attachment to views. 5. Attachment to precepts and rituals. In Buddhism, precepts guide individuals to cultivate a more ethical life, laying the foundation for liberation and wisdom development. The threefold training clearly states that without proper practice of precepts, not just following precepts, the mind can never attain concentration. A concentrated mind leads to wisdom. Therefore, a Buddhist practitioner who breaks or violates precepts cannot build the house of liberation due to lack of foundation. Other religions promote unreasonable, extreme precepts and rituals. For example, in India, Hindus worship cows and never eat beef. In contrast, Muslims and Jews do not eat pork, but can enjoy steak. Because of such peculiar beliefs, Buddhism calls these beliefs attachment to precepts and rituals. A person who keeps a vegetarian diet but does not reduce greed, hatred, and ignorance gains no benefit, and life remains turbulent. Conversely, a person who properly practices precepts, meaning they are always mindful and aware, constantly monitors and controls their body, speech, and mind, leads a life full of happiness, peace, and freedom. These 5 wrong views darken and delude the human mind. In summary, right view is seeing things as they truly are, and only the 4 Noble Truths explain things as they truly are. So the 4 Noble Truths include the Noble Eightfold Path and vice versa. Right view is a practical lifestyle that Buddhist practitioners should implement and develop in all actions of daily life to eliminate wrong views and reap benefits. Thus, right view leads to happiness and peace. Right view also helps perfect morality, spirituality, and wisdom through awakening from within. Ultimately, the most crucial role of right view is to develop wisdom, to see and understand all phenomena of human existence and the universe as they truly are, leading to liberation and nirvana. Furthermore, in the Samudaya Nikaya, the Buddha taught, people often lean towards 2 inclinations in understanding, either existence or non-existence. These are attachments to false perceptions. Because of these attachments, they cling to either the notion of existence or the notion of non-existence. Kachayana, people mostly get entangled in attachment and clinging. Those who are free from attachment and clinging do not hold on to the notion of self. They know that suffering arises when conditions are present and ceases when conditions cease. They have no doubts. Their understanding is not influenced by others but is self-realized. This is called right view. This is how the Tathagata explains right view. One with right view, when contemplating the arising of the world, does not see the world as non-existent. One with right view, when contemplating the cessation of the world, does not see the world as existent. Kakayana, attachment to existence, is one extreme. Attachment to non-existence is another extreme. The Tathagata, avoiding these 2 extremes, teaches the Dharma through the middle way. That is, this exists, therefore that exists, this arises, therefore that arises. From ignorance arises volitional formations. From volitional formations arises consciousness. From consciousness arises name and form. From name and form arises the 6 sense bases. From the 6 sense bases arises contact. From contact arises feeling. From feeling arises craving. From craving arises clinging. From clinging arises becoming. From becoming arises birth. From birth arises aging and death, and thus arises this entire mass of suffering. If ignorance is eradicated, volitional formations are eradicated. If volitional formations are eradicated, consciousness is eradicated. If consciousness is eradicated, name and form are eradicated. If name and form are eradicated, the 6 sense bases are eradicated. If the 6 sense bases are eradicated, contact is eradicated. If contact is eradicated, feeling is eradicated. If feeling is eradicated, craving is eradicated. If craving is eradicated, clinging is eradicated. If clinging is eradicated, becoming is eradicated. If becoming is eradicated, birth is eradicated. If birth is eradicated, aging and death are eradicated, and thus the entire mass of suffering is eradicated. Wisdom and ignorance are eternal adversaries. If a person lives in ignorance, chasing after sensual desires, they will never see the light of wisdom. Conversely, if one dispels the veil of ignorance, wisdom will immediately manifest, like clouds clearing for the sky to shine, or clear water reflecting the moon. Wisdom does not fall from the sky, nor is it granted by any deity, but it is self-developed, following the path of liberation laid out by the Buddha. Therefore, when one directly perceives the truth, it is often called the eye of truth in the scriptures. Right thought. Right thought refers to thinking correctly in accordance with human ethics and the principle of dependent origination. Right thought is genuine and true, not merely prudent thinking as commonly defined in worldly terms. Prudent thinking involves being cautious, thoughtful, considerate, and careful in actions to avoid mistakes and impulsive behavior, thereby yielding beneficial results for oneself and others. However, prudent thinking is only a small part of right thought, as it merely serves to satisfy temporary happiness in everyday life. While prudent thinking helps people avoid wrong decisions and achieve good outcomes, these outcomes still lead people astray in the orbit of greed, hatred, ignorance, and sensual desires, resulting in suffering and distress. Often, to gain wealth, one might resort to dishonesty, unfair competition, or harming others for personal gain. Thus, prudent thinking does not necessarily equate to right thought. Many people in the world practice prudent thinking daily, yet they still cling to wrong views and superstitions, believing the universe was created by a deity who predetermines human fate. They think some are destined for wealth and happiness, while others suffer in poverty, unable to change their divine-ordained circumstances except through prayer. In contrast, right thought reveals that the human universe arises from the principle of dependent origination, continuously and without any mystical intervention. Since the advent of Buddhism, the Buddha denied the existence of a soul created by a deity, asserting instead the existence of consciousness, or mind, which constantly transforms based on psychological and physiological changes. Thus, individuals can purify their minds, leading to better and happier lives, and ultimately, liberation. The Noble Eightfold Path is the most effective way to achieve this ultimate goal. No religion in history has promoted equality as Buddhism does. Consider the Buddha's words to King Pasenadi of Kosala when he accepted Sunita, a lowly worker, into the monastic community over 2,500 years ago, in a society deeply divided by caste. Great King, in the path of liberation, there is no distinction of caste or race. In the eyes of the enlightened, all beings are equal. Everyone's blood is red, and everyone's tears are salty. We are all human beings. We must strive to provide equal opportunities for all to realize their potential and dignity. Therefore, I have welcomed Sunita into the monastic community. The Buddha revolutionized societal norms, abolishing all forms of injustice and social class distinctions in ancient India. Buddhism elevates human dignity and encourages the full development of intellectual potential. Today, many scientists, doctors, engineers, scholars, millionaires, and billionaires have risen from humble beginnings through determination and effort, aided by a society that offers equal opportunities. In contrast, religions based on theism and deities subject humans to fate, making them submissive and passive, contrary to the law of cause and effect in the universe. Misunderstanding this law leads to fear, superstition, and explaining natural and spiritual phenomena through superstitions. Such beliefs are termed wrong views and wrong thinking by the Buddha. For example, a person might do many good deeds but still face many hardships in life, leading them to doubt the law of cause and effect. However, this law is just and impartial. The misfortunes they endure now are the results of past actions, and their current good deeds will bear fruit in the future. This concept is termed differentiated fruition in Buddhism. Observing a garden, we see some plants bearing fruit, while others are yet to sprout. The law of cause and effect applies to all aspects of life, from the physical to the psychological. Understanding this law leads to mindfulness, precaution, and careful actions in body, speech, and mind. To reduce stress and anxiety, one should simplify life and practice ethical living. Speaking kindly results in being liked and respected. Holding anger makes it impossible to have a friendly smile. Thus, understanding the law of cause and effect, destiny is within our control. If one cultivates spiritual awareness and right view, they can change their life. Otherwise, blaming fate or waiting for divine intervention keeps one trapped in a fatalistic mindset, missing the opportunity to improve life. According to Buddhism, we are the masters of our destiny, bringing joy or suffering upon ourselves through our actions. To achieve happiness, one must live ethically, constantly monitor body, speech, and mind, and practice the Noble Eightfold Path correctly. When we perceive the world through our senses, sight, hearing, smell, taste, and touch, all these perceptions enter the mind. The external world is complex and filled with illusions. Therefore, the Buddha taught that we must first purify the thoughts and ideas that enter our minds. Practicing right view helps us control and eliminate incorrect perceptions and maintain a direct, impartial, and objective understanding of reality. The second stage involves thinking without attachment to lust, harm, anger, or delusion, as all suffering and distress stem from these four toxins. Right thought thus helps us lead a peaceful and happy life, free from the orbit of greed, hatred, and delusion, forming a solid foundation for ethical speech and action, because all speech and actions arise from thoughts. The beauty of the Noble Eightfold Path lies in its interdependent nature, where each step reinforces the others, leading to deeper understanding and practice. Right view guides us to see truthfully, in accordance with human ethics, dependent origination, and the path to liberation. Right thought then aligns our thinking with these truthful insights. Mastering right thought means deeply absorbing these truthful insights, which further refines our perception. This continuous purification of body and mind leads to ultimate liberation and wisdom. To develop noble character, we must nurture good thoughts and eliminate base ones, constantly cultivating personal ethics. Always think before speaking or acting to avoid causing harm to oneself or others. Overcoming thoughts of sensual pleasures. Daily, thoughts of sensual pleasures tied to forms, sounds, smells, tastes, and touch can drive people crazy. The Buddha did not deny the allure of beauty, pleasant sounds, fragrances, delicious tastes, and gentle touches. However, sensual pleasures have a double-edged nature. Satisfying desires and seeking happiness requires effort, toil, and hardship, but once obtained, happiness is fleeting and temporary. Thus, happiness is like a shadow that can never be grasped. It never stays. As soon as it is achieved, it becomes boring, and we seek new happiness, creating an endless cycle. Hence, pursuing sensual pleasures only brings more suffering. If greed is one of the roots of unwholesomeness, how can we live without desire? In today's advanced materialistic world, we must distinguish between wants and needs. We need essential things like food, clothing, housing, transportation, and computers to live comfortably. In contrast, desires arise when we seek to fulfill excessive demands, crossing the boundary of contentment. This causes suffering when wishes go unfulfilled or when seeking new happiness. Understanding this, Buddhist practitioners are not required to renounce all material conveniences. They can have what they need but must know the difference between necessary needs and greedy desires. Right thought helps us think about the impermanent, transient, and fleeting nature of all worldly phenomena. The Buddha compared the dissolution of worldly phenomena to a dream, an illusion, a bubble, a mirage, morning dew, and lightning in the sky. Thinking this way gradually frees us from the bondage of worldly pleasures, leading to a peaceful and liberated life. A Western philosopher once said, "To attain noble happiness, avoid base pleasures." Overcoming thoughts of anger, the Buddha taught in the Dhammapada, "They insulted me, beat me, defeated me, robbed me." Those who harbor such thoughts will never let go of hatred, but those who abandon such thoughts will find peace. Therefore, to achieve peace, do not nurture thoughts of anger. The Buddha also taught, abandon anger, let go of pride, break free from all bonds, and suffering will no longer control you. Thus, those who harbor thoughts of anger are burning themselves with their own anger before acting against others. Living in hatred, one is tormented, lonely, and isolated. Hatred, anger, competition, jealousy, envy, inferiority, and resentment diminish one's character and bring turmoil and sorrow. To eliminate these base thoughts, one must cultivate the virtues of loving kindness, compassion, joy, and equanimity. Only compassion can erase hatred, bringing openness, purity, and coolness to the soul. No fire like passion, no sin like hatred, no sorrow like the aggregates, no bliss like nirvana. Dhammapada 202. Even if someone slanders the Buddha, his teachings, or his community, the Buddha advised his disciples not to be angry, dissatisfied, or unhappy. He taught, if you are angry, dissatisfied, or unhappy, you endanger your moral and spiritual foundation and cannot judge whether the criticism is valid. Instead, the Buddha advised, just as one who spits into the sky soils not the sky but oneself. Overcoming thoughts of harming others. People, attached to their ego and possessions, are ready to harm anyone who threatens their interests and dignity. If we value our happiness in life, why not respect the happiness and existence of others? Thus, if we do not want to suffer, we should not seek happiness at others' expense. The Buddha taught, all fear violence, all are afraid of death. Thus, do not kill or cause others to kill, but practice joy and tolerance to eliminate harmful thoughts. Today, modern communication media like radio, television, and especially the internet infiltrate all families. If we open all 6 doors, 6 senses, to receive countless thoughts, our minds cannot be at peace. To gain fame, attract audiences, and earn money, producers release numerous violent, sexual, vulgar, and culturally impoverished films, music, dramas, and games, causing viewers to live in wrong thoughts. These unwholesome seeds, deeply ingrained in the subconscious, will one day influence our words and actions in similar real-life situations, harming ourselves and others. Worse, we might agree with such lifestyles, choosing a misguided path that could darken our lives. Therefore, the process of freeing the mind from wrong thoughts to return to a peaceful state, free from greed, anger, ignorance, and sensual desires, is called right thought. All phenomena in this world have 2 sides, so practitioners of right thought carefully consider their thoughts to see the true face of both aspects of life before concluding, avoiding many mistakes caused by subjective biases. The Buddha summarized 10 primary thoughts for easy contemplation. Impermanence. All things in the world are impermanent. Contemplating the birth and death of the body and mind frees thoughts from delusion. Suffering. Having a body means suffering. Birth, aging, sickness, and death, along with many sorrows, disadvantages, and worries, make people unhappy and unfree. Non-self. Nothing in this world can exist and develop without dependent origination, including ourself. Thus, all things are non-self. Contemplating this helps us gradually break free from attachment to self and possessions, achieving ultimate freedom. Disgust with food. Thoughts not entangled in making a living. The Buddha taught monks to be moderate in eating because we eat to live, not live to eat. Thinking this way helps us not to depend too much on material things. Throughout history, people have fought and killed for food and clothing, competing for economic influence. Thus, we should view food and drink as means, not the goal of life, as the ultimate goal must be higher. Sensual pleasures, lust, anger, ignorance, and delusion arise from ignorance and sensual desires. The Buddha also taught, beings are influenced by 8 worldly conditions: gain and loss, fame and disgrace, praise and blame, pleasure and pain. Those who free their thoughts from these unwholesome conditions will attain freedom and liberation. Greed is dreadful. Hatred too burns self and others. No net like delusion, no river like desire. Dhammapada 251. Contemplation of death. Birth leads to death. Understanding the aggregates as empty, one does not cling to life or fear death, living peacefully and dying calmly. Contemplation of transgressions. Overly valuing the body and protecting it at all costs. The Buddha taught to keep the body healthy for easy practice and wisdom development, not to overly value the body. A healthy person may sacrifice their body for altruism, while one overly attached to the body may harm others for personal gain. Behold the body, a heap of flesh, a place of suffering and pain. Engrossed in irrelevant thoughts, nothing lasts. Why seek immortality? This body, worn out and frail, with illness often mingled, this fragile life at every breath, is ever subject to death's threat. Dhammapada 147-148. Contemplation of detachment, renouncing the 3 realms, sensual, form, and formless, to attain liberation and enlightenment. What use 100 years lived, with craving and aversion uncontrolled? Better a single day lived, with virtue, wisdom, and meditation. Dhammapada 110. Contemplation of cessation, aspiring to eliminate all suffering and affliction. Well done is the practice of mindfulness. Well done is the practice of right conduct for one who is unfettered by desires, lives a bright and peaceful life, attaining nirvana. Contemplation of non-attachment, finally freeing thoughts from sensual desires. The Buddha taught, desire causes sorrow, desire causes fear. One who is free from desire has no sorrow or fear. Indeed, as long as our thoughts are influenced by desire, we cannot be truly free and unburdened. Those who are addicted to desire entangle themselves in its web, like a spider caught in its own net. The wise cut off this entanglement, free from all suffering and unaffected. We should ask ourselves, can changing our way of thinking change our lives? Regardless of what thoughts or ideas arise in our minds, what we see or hear, a practitioner of right thought always transforms all bad and evil thoughts into good and wholesome ones, negativity into positivity, bad people into good ones, pessimism into optimism, doubt into trust, anger into love and forgiveness, contempt into respect, sorrow into joy, failure into life lessons, etc. Knowing how to transform thoughts means changing our perspective and way of living, leading to a happier and more peaceful life. We create our lives, and our happiness or suffering is self-inflicted. Why not reflect on ourselves to understand our behavior and accept the circumstances we face daily? If the world is impermanent and non-self, why hold on to things that cause us suffering? Let go of unnecessary attachments and strive to change and abandon all bindings, like a swimmer shedding heavy stones on their back. Abandon the mindset of always being right. Because of stubbornness and ego, many cannot accept being wrong and always think they are right, even if it risks a good relationship and causes stress. Whenever you argue about who is right, ask yourself, do you want to prove you are right or be a good person? What do you gain here? Is your ego so big that you cannot let go? Abandon blaming others. Stop blaming others for what you have or don't have, for how you feel or don't feel. Since the mind is outwardly focused, people only see others' faults, never their own. Don't waste your qualities and take responsibility for your life, for no one is entirely good or bad. Seeing your own faults and not others increases life's value and enhances character. Abandon negative thoughts. How can others not be hurt by persistent, repetitive negative attitudes? Don't think everything in your mind is dark and self-destructive. You can do much better. No matter how long the night, morning will come. Understanding karma, start turning your life from negative to positive by acting against it, not accepting the status quo. Recognize the harm and benefits of karma and karmic results to cultivate more good conditions, ensuring a flourishing, happy life. Remember, according to the law of cause and effect, you only receive what you put into life. Abandon inferiority. Stop being insecure about what you can or cannot do. From now on, don't let your beliefs limit and imprison you. Believe in yourself. Any great success starts with small steps. Do what you want, dream what you want, go where you want, become what you want, because you only have one life and one chance to do all you wish. Abandon complaints. Stop complaining about everything, everyone, every situation, or every event that makes you unhappy, sad, or frustrated. Remember, no one can make you unhappy, no situation can make you sad unless you allow it. You are the sole master with full power to shape your life as you wish, so heaven or hell, suffering or liberation depends on your choice of karmic causes. Life is full of challenges, so always look forward, making each failure a step towards success. Abandon criticism. Stop criticizing things, actions, or people different from you. We are all different, but we are all the same. We all want happiness, understanding, and compassion. Don't care about what people say behind your back. They are those who point out others' faults instead of correcting their own. Abandon resistance to change. Change is good. It helps you move from A to B. Change improves your life and the lives of those around you. Walk your path and accept change. Countless times, people give up when a little more effort and perseverance would lead to success. However, success is not the key to happiness. Happiness is the key to success. If you enjoy what you do, you will succeed. Abandon fear. Fear is an illusion. It does not exist. You create it, originating from a deluded mind. Change your internal thinking and the external world will be peaceful again. Contemplate life's impermanence. There's nothing to fear. Without greed, there's no fear of loss. Without attachment to life, there's no fear of death. Remember, you only live once, but if you live right, once is enough. there's nothing to fear. Abandon excuses. Pack your excuses and throw them away. You don't need them. Often we limit ourselves in what we do for various reasons. Instead of growing and elevating life and spirit, we get stuck, deceive ourselves, and make excuses that are 99.9% untrue. Life is short. Why deceive yourself? Abandon the past. Letting go of the past is challenging, especially when it seems better than the present, and the future seems scary. But remember, the present is all you have, existing only once. Dreaming of the past while ignoring the present makes the present slip away. Be aware of everything you do and enjoy life, because life is a journey, not a destination. It's good to have a clear vision of the future and prepare for it, but always be yourself here and now. Abandon attachment. This concept is hard to understand for many, but the world arises and ceases by conditions, so nothing stays with us forever. When you detach from everything, you become more peaceful, tolerant, friendly, and serene, reaching a state of understanding without suffering. It is a state beyond words. Abandon living by others' expectations. Many live according to what others think is best for them, ignoring their true desires. They try to meet others' expectations to please them, losing themselves and failing to control their lives. You have one life, live it. Don't let others' opinions pull you from your path. In summary, no revolution is more challenging than the revolution to free the mind from external constraints and internal pollution, as thought requires many tests and struggles to find freedom. Therefore, right thought is the process of thinking about detaching from sensual pleasures, not being angry, and not harming others. This genuine thinking forms a solid foundation, guiding the mind on a holy path and freeing it from suffering. Most importantly, thinking beyond the three realms, sensual, form, and formless, with the determination to end the cycle of birth and death, is truly right thought. Right speech. Now, right speech, right action, and right livelihood are the three factors that constitute a moral life, which Buddhism calls sila, morality. Morality in Buddhism does not mean a set of dogmas that followers must strictly obey or face punishment as in some other religions. Instead, the essence of sila is to live ethically, cultivate virtue, and live according to one's conscience. Proper practice of sila ensures a peaceful and happy life. Conversely, life will be full of turmoil and suffering. The Buddha introduced sila to encourage beings to live a pure and ethical life. Whether to practice it or not is up to each individual, as the Buddha has no power to punish or reward anyone. However, according to the law of cause and effect, if one sows good deeds, they will receive good results and happiness. Conversely, sowing unwholesome deeds will result in suffering. The Buddha introduced the house of enlightenment with 3 floors. The first floor is the foundation. To ensure the house of enlightenment is solid, the practitioner must build a strong foundation, which is sila. Thus, breaking sila means the house of enlightenment will collapse. Fully practicing sila means living a moral life, making life light, serene, and free from worries and sorrow. The second floor is concentration. After leading a pure life, the mind becomes serene, allowing the practitioner to enter and practice various levels of concentration. The third floor is wisdom. This is the highest and ultimate goal of Buddhism, which is wisdom. Once the mind is concentrated, the practitioner continues using insight meditation, eventually leading to the arising of wisdom, which directly perceives the truth. The Noble Eightfold Path is a continuous process with closely related, interactive, and mutual support elements. The Buddha first introduced right view so that individuals have an accurate and unbiased understanding of themselves and the world around them. Following this, the Buddha introduced right thought, because only with correct understanding can the mind think of righteous and beneficial things for oneself and others. Incorrect understanding leads to wrong thinking, inclined toward satisfying the desires of the ego, greed, hatred, ignorance, and sensual desire. After right thought, the Buddha introduced right speech, right action, and right livelihood, because thoughts turn into speech and actions. The trio of body, speech, and mind are the main factors that help people live peacefully, happily, and tranquilly. Conversely, the same trio can cause people to fall into suffering, making life tumultuous, and of course, creating bad karma leading to future suffering. In summary, the body includes right action, right livelihood, and right effort. Speech includes right speech, and the mind includes right view and right thought. Thus, the entire Buddhist teaching aims to help people purify their body, speech, and mind, improving life to become noble, light, happy, and peaceful. Speech plays a crucial role in life as it directly reflects the relationships between people. It is the communication bridge that fosters understanding and sympathy, and it can also lead to opposition, enmity, and jealousy. In daily activities, from family to society, speech is the bridge that brings people closer, making life more meaningful and happy. Conversely, speech can cause discord among siblings, separation between spouses, parents' anger towards children, and neighbors or friends turning away from each other. Under normal circumstances, speech reflects a person's character, except for those who are hypocritical. In modern advanced countries, they have even developed sign language so everyone can converse and exchange thoughts. Therefore, speech brings people closer, making it easier to understand and share any feelings. When one can express themselves, the frustrations in their heart are relieved, like releasing water through a dam. In family life, every parent wishes for their children to be happy and find their own path. A smart child is not necessarily a happy one. However, a child who feels loved is nurtured to be independent, dream big, have clear life goals, and always know what to do in the future to be happy. This depends on how parents love, communicate, and teach their children from an early age. Parents want to teach their children to read, to develop their intellect, and to shape them to be independent, but often fail due to the children's resistance. The main reason is that children lack self-assessment abilities to motivate themselves to study and listen to their parents. To help children develop self-confidence and self-assessment abilities, the first step is to make them feel they are important to their parents, thus understanding the meaning of life. To show this, nothing is better than daily gestures and actions such as being close, talking, being patient, and praising. These are the bridges that bring parents closer to their children. However, excessive pampering and fulfilling all their demands make children dependent, negative, lack the drive to strive, and easily fall. Most importantly, in any family, parents are the direct role models for their children. If parents live honestly, kindly, and friendly, children will follow their example. According to the Buddha, parents have 4 responsibilities towards their children. 1. Preventing children from committing evil deeds. The home is the first school, and parents are the first teachers. Children often learn the basics of good and evil from their parents. Careless parents may directly or indirectly instill lies, deceit, dishonesty, slander, revenge, shamelessness, fearlessness of wrongdoing, and immoral actions into their children's young minds. Remember the habit of imitation. Therefore, parents must set an example and avoid instilling bad habits into their innocent children's minds. However, the most critical factor is children's exposure to bad influences from friends, so parents should monitor and encourage their children to associate with ethical individuals or families, because near ink, you'll be stained, near light, you'll shine. 2. Encouraging children to do good deeds. Parents are teachers at home, and teachers are parents at school. Both parents and teachers are responsible for the future and happiness of the children. Whether they become good or bad depends on the nurturing of parents and teachers. Daily environments significantly influence children's future behavior. Children imitate and follow the adults around them in their innocence. They absorb what is transmitted to them, follow the adults' footsteps, and are influenced by their thoughts, words, and actions. Therefore, parents must create a suitable environment at home and school. Simplicity, obedience, cooperation, unity, sacrifice, honesty, straightforwardness, helpfulness, self-confidence, contentment, and other virtues should be ingrained in their young minds. Creating an environment to share moral stories, planting such seeds will grow into trees bearing many fruits. Number 3. Providing children with a good education. A proper education is the best legacy parents can leave their children, more valuable than any treasure. Education is the best blessing parents can give their children. Education should be imparted from a young age in a moral atmosphere, training them to maintain noble discipline, human ethics, and love for people. This deeply affects their lives. Successful children in life often inherit a beautiful cultural legacy and have a clear future direction. 4. Passing on assets to children at the right time. Parents not only love and care for their children under their protection, but also worry about their future and happiness. Parents work hard to create wealth, but do not hesitate to let their children inherit it. They leave assets to their children, but do not want them to waste them, only to use them to improve their living standards. In all these actions, mutual respect and concern for both parents' debt and children's happiness are crucial. The Buddha emphasized that parents should be careful and delicate about the issue of assets, because their influence is like a double-edged sword. If children are independent and self-sufficient, they do not rely on their parents' assets because they can create their own. Conversely, if children have no future and no stable career, they depend heavily on their parents' assets. However, no matter how vast the wealth, it will eventually run out, leaving their future uncertain. Bill Gates, the second richest person in the world with assets of over $100 billion, plans to leave only a small amount to his children, donating the rest to charity. His primary reason is to make his children responsible, test their talents in life, develop their mental potential, benefit society, care for the poor, and live a virtuous and humble life. Parents in the United States should also be careful when passing on assets before retirement. Unlike Eastern cultures, where parents save and build a legacy for their children, Western cultures have a different perspective. In the US, children are largely self-sufficient and do not rely on their parents, so American parents rarely pass on assets before they die, using most of their wealth for their retirement. Today, there are many sad stories about children's coldness towards their parents in nursing homes within the Vietnamese community. In this world, many filial children exist, but there are also cases where children struggle with life and cannot care for their elderly, ailing parents. Therefore, parents should remember, parents' money is the children's money, but the children's money is always the children's money. Thus, parents should be careful not to pass on all their hard-earned assets to their children, avoiding future regret and loneliness in nursing homes, waiting for visits in vain. The Buddha taught that those who speak kindly and gently will be trusted and respected because their words come from a calm and pure inner state, always friendly. Conversely, the Buddha warned against malicious speech. This includes harsh, rude, bitter, arrogant, and cursing words. Such speech causes annoyance, suffering, and even death, reducing one's character, leading to bad karma and suffering that one will eventually endure. When we speak curses and bitter words, it's like releasing swords from our mouth to cause suffering to others. This is malicious speech. Therefore, the Buddha taught, to destroy someone takes one word, but to build someone takes 1,000 words. Speech always has a dual effect, positive or negative, so a person with mindfulness always thinks and reflects before speaking. Conversely, those without awareness speak thoughtlessly, insensitively, and easily offend others. The Buddha advised speaking mindfully, knowing what one will say, and considering the consequences. Speaking behind someone's back often leads to disputes and misunderstandings, sometimes destroying relationships. In severe cases, it can lead to lawsuits for defamation or damaging reputations. Meditation in Buddhism is for reflection and self-examination. Practitioners reflect on what they have said, done, or thought, whether it brings happiness, peace, or suffering. According to Buddhist principles, right speech is honest speech that does not create unwholesome karma, meaning not lying, not using harsh language, not speaking bitter curses, not gossiping, which often leads to disputes, misunderstandings, wastes time, and disturbs the mind. In summary, right speech is not only honest and free from unwholesome karma, but also uses speech to create good karma. Therefore, avoid slanderous speech that divides or causes discord. Instead, seek to bring harmony and understanding among people. Speak without sarcasm, avoid causing harm, do not flaunt talents, and do not expose others' faults to turn enemies into friends naturally. Avoid using rude language to humiliate others. Instead, use polite, respectful speech to comfort, encourage, or persuade. Never let harsh words come from our mouths, no matter how bad or evil others may be. The more you curse them, the more your mind becomes contaminated. Consider them your good teacher. Avoid idle gossip and speak appropriately, reasonably, and beneficially. Sometimes, even when speaking truthfully and politely, It may hurt someone's feelings due to their pride. Our speech, good or bad, reflects our thoughts and feelings about a person or matter. Thus, the mind is the cause, and the body and speech are its effects. Recognizing this importance, right speech follows right thought. If we praise someone, it's because we have a good impression of them. Conversely, if we want to curse someone, it's because we dislike them. Therefore, speech is a product reflecting our inner thoughts and feelings. To practice right speech thoroughly, the Buddha described the speech of a wise person as follows. Speak at the right time. If honest words are not spoken at the right time, they become useless. Therefore, a wise person must tactfully apply their words at the right place and time. Truthful. A wise person speaks truthfully without deceit or falsehood. The Buddha taught, most people spend their lives doing three things: deceiving themselves, deceiving others, and being deceived by others. Remember, conscience is the fairest judge. You may deceive others, but never your conscience, so why suffer from having to fabricate 10 more lies to cover one falsehood? Beneficial. Words should have a purpose and meaning. Even if true, if they do not benefit anyone, they are just idle chatter, useless. Rational. Words should be rational and align with morality. Moral. Generally, we understand virtue as beneficial, but in reality, what is beneficial is not always virtuous. Thus, a wise person's speech must be both beneficial and moral. But how do we speak rationally and morally? Speak about compassion as it fosters a selfless heart, free from greed, selfishness, and stinginess. Speak about contentment to help us abandon excessive desires and live joyfully in any situation. Speak about purity to help us have a calm, clean, and tranquil mind. Speak about independence to avoid partisanship, reliance, and develop self-confidence. Speak about diligence to help us overcome laziness, hesitation, and indecision. Speak about morality to eliminate bad habits accumulated over countless lives. Speak about meditation as it can eradicate desires, hatred, and develop mental strength. Speak about wisdom to help us cultivate a pure mind and develop intellect to comprehend the truth. Speak about liberation and enlightenment, the ultimate goal of Buddhists, to eradicate ignorance and affliction. Speak about the realization of knowledge, meaning the direct experience of the saints or Buddhas, to guide us on our practice, believing that one day we will also achieve such realization. The nature of speech depends on the mind's state. If the mind is angry, annoyed, or irritable, the speech will be harsh and fierce. Conversely, if the mind is calm, serene, and peaceful, the speech will be pleasant, gentle, and harmonious. Since right view and right thought are the seeds of right speech, if speech causes suffering, it indicates that our understanding and thinking are unclear or incorrect. The Buddha advised speaking kindly and culturally, with integrity, to elevate our lives and others. He also recommended living mindfully to control our speech, determined not to say anything harmful to ourselves or others, only gentle words that promote harmony and benefit everyone in any difficult situation. Speech has an immense impact not only on each individual's happiness, but can also determine society's peace and safety. For those who have attained enlightenment, speech is less important. The truth of the speech matters most. Finally, the Buddha taught, right thought gives rise to right speech. Right action. Right action is the practice of rightful deeds to live in accordance with the truth and ethics, encompassing physical actions. Following right speech, the Buddha discussed right action and right livelihood because speech always accompanies actions. Right action includes not killing, not stealing in any form, and abstaining from sexual misconduct. To end suffering in life, avoid imprisonment, or evade dangerous accidents, incurable diseases, conflicts, jealousy, and selfishness, the Buddha advised beings to practice right action. He encouraged people to refrain from wrongful deeds, promoting higher ethical actions, and urging everyone to act with compassion towards all beings. Everyone fears punishment. Everyone fears death. Taking oneself as an example, do not kill or cause killing. Dhammapada 129. Even if we do not kill or cause others to kill, any action that causes harm to others in any form is unethical. In the past, the Buddha and his monks were not vegetarians. They ate meat and fish when offered but did not intentionally kill. The Jivaka Sutta Majjhima Nikaya, number 55, speaks of the threefold pure meat or fivefold pure meat, which monks were allowed to consume. Jivaka, Those who say, for the sake of the ascetic Gautama, they kill living beings, and the ascetic Gautama knowingly eats meat killed for him. Those who say thus are not speaking according to my teaching. They are slandering me. I say that there are 3 instances in which meat should not be eaten: when it is seen, heard, or suspected that the animal was killed for oneself. I say there are 3 instances in which meat should be eaten: when it is not seen, not heard, and not suspected that the animal was killed for oneself. Furthermore, the 5-fold pure meat includes the above 3 and meat from animals that died naturally or from animals eaten by other creatures. According to the Buddha's teaching, if one does not see, hear, or suspect, and certainly does not kill the animal oneself, then one does not break the precepts, meaning one should seek buy meat already prepared, sold in the market. The Buddha taught that those who do not create the karma of killing living beings will have a long life. Those who create the karma of killing, shortening the lives of living beings, will have a short life. Evil karma brings suffering, leading to a body prone to illness and weakness. The issue of vegetarianism and meat eating is a sensitive topic. However, in Vietnam during the Tron dynasty, Master Tu Trung, who had a younger sister, Empress Nguyen Ton Thien Cam, hosted a banquet in the palace with both vegetarian and non-vegetarian dishes. Master Tu Trung ate without distinguishing between vegetarian and non-vegetarian food. The Empress asked, "How can you attain Buddhahood while eating meat and fish?" The master laughed and replied, "Buddha is Buddha, and I am me. I do not need to become Buddha. Buddha does not need to become me. Have you not heard the ancients say that Manjushri is Manjushri, and liberation is liberation?" Discussion. Master Tu Trung said, "Buddha is Buddha, and I am me, meaning the mouth is the mouth, but the mind is always the mind. Thus, while the mouth eats meat, the mind does not, so there is no defilement." Here, the master wanted to break the attachment to the method of practice and emphasize the importance of cultivating the mind. For the liberated person, even if the mouth chews meat, the mind remains as calm as if chewing tofu. This exemplifies the saying, "Unattached to anything, the mind arises," meaning even though the eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body, and mind interact with forms, sounds, smells, tastes, touches, and dharmas, the mind remains calm and detached, leading to peaceful nirvana. This is the story of a liberated person, but as ordinary people, we should be cautious because our minds are still attached. About 500 years after the Buddha's nirvana, Mahayana Buddhism emerged, and Mahayana scholars introduced 5 new ideas to differentiate from Theravada Buddhism. These are: 1. Transforming the ideal of nirvana of the arhats into the ideal of bodhisattva. 2. Introducing the 6 paramitas, wherein compassion is placed alongside wisdom. 3. During the Buddha's time, Buddhism only promoted self-realization without faith. Hence, in the Dhammapada, the Buddha said, "Be a lamp unto yourselves, take refuge in the Dharma, follow the Dharma for liberation, do not seek liberation elsewhere, neither in another person nor in another place." 4. Expedient means became essential, including the unimaginable realms, the Buddha worlds, and the Buddhas like Prabhutaratna appearing, or the Buddha using miraculous powers to shake the world, as in the Lotus Sutra or Vimalakirti Sutra. Such realms did not exist during the Buddha's lifetime. 5. To suit the teachings of the non-dual world, Mahayana introduced the concept of emptiness and redefined all theories of emptiness to fit the new teachings, differentiating from Theravada. To promote the Bodhisattva ideal, Mahayana Buddhism advocated non-violence, meaning bodhisattvas should not eat meat. Thus, some Mahayana schools advocate vegetarianism. This idea can be found in the Lankavatara Sutra, the Sarangama Sutra, and the Mahaparinirvana Sutra. However, some Mahayana or Vajrayana schools do not practice vegetarianism, such as many Japanese Mahayana schools or Tibetan Buddhism, Red Sect. Listen to the 14th Dalai Lama on vegetarianism. I also tried to be a strict vegetarian from 1965 and maintained it for about 22 or 23 years. Then I became weak, and the doctors advised me to change my diet. For those who can maintain it, it is best to be strict vegetarians. Therefore, being vegetarian is a good virtue, but more importantly, one must purify one's body, speech, and mind. Now, from the perspective of spiritual development, being vegetarian or eating meat is not the main factor leading practitioners to liberation. practitioners must practice renouncing sensuality and unwholesome states for the mind to gradually become pure. Renouncing sensuality means completely detaching from objects of desire, which is physical seclusion. Renouncing unwholesome states means abandoning the defilements, desires of the mind, which is mental seclusion. In other words, renouncing sensuality is purifying bodily karma, and renouncing unwholesome states is purifying mental karma. Thus, the Buddha taught that liberation does not depend on diet, vegetarian, or meat eating, but on the purification of the three karmas: body, speech, and mind. In modern life, many things contribute to indirect killing that we often do not notice. For example, while gardening, we may accidentally kill insects. When infected, we take antibiotics, which kill countless germs, living beings in our bodies. Even vegetarians, by consuming plants, indirectly cause the death of countless insects during farming, fertilizing, and pesticide use. Therefore, eating those products also involves indirect killing. Even pulling up a plant means taking a life. However, the Buddha taught any action done with intent is significant and constitutes karma. Stealing does not necessarily mean robbing a bank or shoplifting. Stealing means taking anything that does not belong to us. This manifests greed, so when greed arises, it overshadows humanity, prompting one to take things regardless of the consequences. Today, in some developing countries, government officials from the top to the bottom shamelessly use their power to seize national assets and money, turning public resources into personal property. Though they live in luxurious mansions, these are the people's blood and sweat, not their own possessions. Conversely, countries like Japan or Singapore have shown exemplary ethical standards, earning global admiration. In Japan, during the 2011 Tohoku earthquake, 9.0 Richter scale, and subsequent tsunamis up to 40 meters high, there was no theft of any kind. Furthermore, lost money or items were always returned to their owners or handed over to the authorities. A Japanese director working in Vietnam hired a Vietnamese driver to avoid the chaotic traffic in Saigon. Before returning to Japan, the director said to the driver, "We know you have been siphoning off gasoline for many years and kept asking for a raise every year. We agreed because of the safety of your driving, but in truth, if you hadn't done so, we would have rewarded you even more." Besides killing and stealing, sexual misconduct also plays a significant role in family life. The Buddha always encouraged beings to remain faithful and not covet others. When one looks at a person of the opposite sex with lustful thoughts, it indicates a state of sexual misconduct. Those with sexual misconduct have impure minds entangled in unwholesome thoughts. Such impure intentions will eventually cause suffering for their family and others, potentially leading to broken homes, even violence, imprisonment, and innocent children losing their parents. Today, in civilized countries, revealing clothing is considered fashionable and beautiful. However, cultured and ethical people know that beauty and fashion do not necessarily mean revealing attire. Modesty and natural elegance are also beautiful. Psychologists say those who expose skin excessively often lack self-confidence, harbor many complexes, and lack culture and ethics, only satisfying temporary desires. Thus, sexual misconduct leads to suffering, breaking family happiness, and turning peaceful lives into disgrace. Sensuality is the attraction and seduction of a person, making one lose clarity and live in delusion. Due to the dangers of sensuality, the Buddha taught, "Monks, I do not see any other form, sound, smell, taste, touch, that enslaves a woman's mind as much as the form, sound, smell, taste, touch of a man. Monks, a woman's mind is obsessed with that." Throughout human history, from east to west, many heroes have succumbed to beauty because of their infatuation with sensual pleasures. Practicing right action is not just about avoiding breaking precepts or fearing revenge or legal punishment, but more importantly, it is about avoiding cruel, harmful actions that bring immeasurable suffering to others and oneself, both now and in the future. Understanding the law of karma strengthens one's resolve to abandon unwholesome actions, because what we do today, we will reap tomorrow. The Buddha encouraged beings to always practice right action in life because wrongful deeds make the mind impure, causing constant anxiety, fear, and sorrow. Conversely, rightful actions benefit oneself and others, bringing a light, serene, and joyful mind. In conclusion, practicing right action is not only about not committing evil deeds, but also about doing all good deeds, meaning do no evil, do all good. Without moral training, people become evildoers, and life becomes their victim. No one dares to claim to be perfect, but if we act rightly, refrain from killing, stealing, and sexual misconduct, and practice love, help others, and create good karma in every situation, the path we walk will be calm, with flowers blooming along the way. But the highest right action is to cultivate merit and virtue towards liberation and enlightenment. The Buddha also taught, right thought gives rise to right speech, and right speech gives rise to right action. Right livelihood. Right livelihood refers to earning a living through ethical and rightful means. But what exactly constitutes an ethical livelihood? In any society, there are numerous ways to earn a living, aligned with one's abilities and knowledge. However, certain professions can cause harm or suffering to others, both in the present and in the future. Conversely, some livelihoods do not involve deceit, inflict pain, exploit others, infringe on others' freedom and equality, or damage and destroy the natural environment. Understanding the law of karma, we should choose professions that do not involve killing other living beings or destroying and polluting their living environments. We should avoid and not invest in businesses that harm human lives, such as manufacturing and trading weapons, developing chemical weapons, missiles, or producing and selling pesticides. Selling drugs leads to degradation and ruins the lives and families of consumers. Professions that spread superstition, fortune-telling, spirit possession, and other deceptive practices cause people to live in delusion, losing direction in life because they do not believe in and practice the law of karma. There are countless other professions. Generally, any profession that does not make us violate the 5 precepts, no stealing, no killing, no lying, no sexual misconduct, and no intoxicants, is considered an ethical livelihood. Living honestly in this way means having right livelihood. According to the Buddha, all human thoughts and actions originate from the mind. If one has a good mind and works to develop human society through practical actions, the results will benefit humanity. This means living a wholesome life, not living off the suffering of others. Therefore, if we care about protecting our happiness in life, we should respect others' happiness and survival. Thus, if we do not want to suffer, we should never seek happiness through others' suffering. However, livelihood often goes hand in hand with karma, so whatever profession we choose, we are bound to create karma. In the middle-length discourses, the Buddha taught, humans are the owners of their karma, the heirs of their karma. Karma is the womb from which they are born. Karma is their refuge. This implies that human existence is intertwined with good and evil, and each person must face the karma they create. However, we live in a relative world where something right for one person may be wrong for another. This applies to good and evil, as well as right and wrong. In August 1945, U.S. President Harry S. Truman ordered the dropping of 2 atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki to end World War II. For Japan, this was an extremely cruel and barbaric act, but for the U.S., it was justified because without it, the war would continue, and countless soldiers and civilians on both sides would die. However, Buddhism views good as light symbolizing peace, holiness, happiness, and wisdom, while evil is seen as darkness representing sin, misfortune, sorrow, suffering, and ignorance. Thus, good or evil karma is not based on human bias or personal opinion. Therefore, while living in the same world, some people create great merit, and others accumulate much bad karma. Ultimately, one's profession is a result of the merit from past lives. Those with merit find work easily, live comfortably, and have the opportunity to create more merit for the future. Those lacking merit struggle to find work, are not wealthy, and their professions do not contribute to creating more merit for them in the future. If we look closely, the opportunities to create good karma through right action are few, but in right livelihood, there are many opportunities to increase one's merit daily. Some professions, the more one works in them, the more merit they create, leading to future prosperity. Thus, a good profession is an effective way to cultivate merit. Remember, the merit we receive in this life is the result of the good karma we created in previous lives. All acts of giving, offerings, and helping the needy bring us wealth, intelligence, and longevity in this life. Therefore, no one can deny that Buddhism is the rightful path guiding people to practice righteous conduct for a happy, peaceful life. Do the merit we cultivate and the good deeds we do daily truly bring us happiness? Remember, merit comes from giving, offerings, or doing good for sentient beings, while virtue is the inherent goodness of a pure, selfless mind. A very wealthy person lacking virtue and character has much merit but lacks virtue, and this wealth can lead them quickly into degradation and sin. Merit and virtue can be likened to a glass and the water within. The glass represents virtue, while the water represents merit. If the glass is intact and full of water, life is peaceful and serene, meaning that despite wealth, one lives a noble and virtuous life, using old merit to create new merit, which is wise in the Buddhist way. Virtuous people view wealth as a means of living rather than a goal to chase, preventing them from falling into desires. Conversely, if merit is abundant but virtue is lacking, life becomes chaotic and painful, like water overflowing from the glass. This means having plenty of merit without increasing virtue, leading to an unbalanced life. For example, in Vietnam today, some people have become very wealthy due to circumstances. While their wealth grows, their character and ethics do not, leading them into debauchery, causing family unhappiness and potential breakdown. Thus, merit does not truly bring happiness and peace if one's virtue does not grow. Living in this world, no one dares claim to be perfect, but to pursue the path of goodness, we should train ourselves to live within the framework of human ethics, meaning striving to cultivate the mind, nurture virtues, and stop creating unwholesome karma. Otherwise, if we do not live with moral integrity, we become evildoers, and our lives become the victims of our actions. In summary, living with right livelihood means having a straightforward life without greed, not profiting from the sweat and tears of others, and not causing suffering to people and animals through one's profession. A profession that benefits oneself and others and creates much merit now and in the future is an ethical livelihood. The profound meaning of right livelihood is purity, directing the mind towards liberation and nirvana. Practically speaking, someone living with right livelihood has the opportunity to fulfill the other aspects of the Eightfold Path. Conversely, without right livelihood, there can be no right view, and vice versa. A person living in wrongful conduct has only wrong thoughts because those thoughts are based on greed, hatred, delusion, and desire. Meditation in Buddhism is not necessarily about sitting cross-legged or entering a trance for liberation, but meditation in life means reflecting on oneself. Every day we need moments of silence to calm the mind and look within, reflecting on what our body, speech, and mind have done to bring happiness and peace, and what they have done to cause anxiety and suffering. This way we can have a clear and practical direction for our lives. Therefore, the key to happiness or suffering lies in our hands. Thus, learning Buddhism means knowing how to live, knowing how to open the door to heavenly happiness. Conversely, living in ignorance leads people into realms of suffering and turmoil. Right speech, right action, and right livelihood are considered the foundation of human ethics, which Buddhism calls morality, sila. Practicing morality properly will undoubtedly bring happiness and peace to you and your family. Remember, Buddhist precepts are merely the Buddha's call, advice to encourage people to do good, avoid evil, cultivate the mind, and nurture virtues to achieve good results in their lives. The Buddha does not have the power to punish those who break precepts or reward anyone. However, based on the law of cause and effect, what we sow, we will reap one day, leading to happiness or suffering. In the process of liberation, the threefold training of morality, concentration, and wisdom, morality is the foundation for building the house of the Noble Eightfold Path, because only by practicing morality correctly can the mind enter concentration. When the mind is stable in concentration, wisdom will arise, directly perceiving the truth and achieving liberation. Conversely, those who break the precepts will have wrong concentration, leading to a life full of turmoil and suffering. Right effort is a crucial factor that creates a close relationship of cause and effect in practicing the other 7 factors. Without right effort, it is difficult for any of the 8 branches to achieve results. Therefore, right effort is the motivating force that encourages and supports the completion of the other branches. the Buddha taught. And what, monks, is right effort? Here, monks, with the aim of preventing the arising of unarisen evil, unwholesome states, one generates desire, makes an effort, arouses energy, applies their mind and strives. With the aim of abandoning arisen evil, unwholesome states, one generates desire, makes an effort, arouses energy, applies their mind and strives. With the aim of developing unarisen wholesome states, one generates desire, makes an effort, arouses energy, applies their mind and strives. With the aim of maintaining arisen wholesome states so they do not decline but rather increase, develop, and come to fulfillment, one generates desire, makes an effort, arouses energy, applies their mind and strives. This, monks, is called right effort. Right effort directly aims at the three objectives of abandoning evil, doing good, and purifying the mind, as described by the Buddha in the following verse. Do not do any evil, cultivate good deeds, keep your mind pure. This is the teaching of the Buddhas. Dhammapada 183. Therefore, practicing right effort is to develop compassion and the Bodhi mind. Mindfulness. Mindfulness is the remembrance of righteous teachings. It purifies the mind by preventing and eradicating wrongful thoughts and nurturing and developing rightful thoughts. Thus, mindfulness means adjusting the mind to follow the righteous path, also known as meditation. In general, mindfulness is the key to the present moment. Without it, people cannot perceive the world they live in clearly and simply, and they will get lost in the swirling world of conscious or unconscious thoughts. One can say that mindfulness acts as a gatekeeper, constantly guarding us from being drawn into wrongful thoughts. We should not let the mind wander aimlessly, send it into the realm of fantasies, or dwell on the past or future. The Buddha compared time as follows. The past is like a dream, the future is like an illusion, the present is like a cloud. So while the mind moves back and forth between dreams, illusions, and clouds, we can practice mindfulness to bring the mind back and free it from the turmoil of daily life. Consciousness constantly urges people to satisfy external desires. For example, while reading, a thought suddenly flashes, now let's find something to eat even though we're not hungry. So we stop reading, open the refrigerator, and rummage through it for various foods. What drives us to act like this? It all starts with a thought. In life, we are driven by thoughts, consciousness, that control nearly all our actions without us even noticing. Therefore, practicing mindfulness helps practitioners recognize the true nature of consciousness, preventing it from leading us into the orbit of the ignorant, greedy world. When we clearly see what is happening at the present moment, wisdom will guide us to choose and act according to virtuous practices instead of pursuing the satisfaction of selfish desires. Only when we see how desires burn those who indulge in them can we see that desires are worth abandoning. Mindfulness is also responsible for alerting us in moments of anger, redirecting the mind towards righteous thoughts. It warns us of impending anger, allowing us to transform it and bring peace to our minds. Hence, Buddhism always calls on people to attain inner peace first, and then naturally, the peace of the world will follow. Meaning, if the mind is at peace, the world will be at peace. Every day, people are constantly chasing illusions because we forget mindfulness. The 6 desires and 7 emotions lure our minds to follow them. Therefore, mindfulness can always bring people back to the righteous path. In the teachings on the practice of concentration and wisdom, in the Great Mindfulness Sutra, the Buddha taught the 4 foundations of mindfulness as follows. Monks, this is the only path that leads to the purification of beings, the overcoming of sorrow and grief, the extinction of pain and distress, the attainment of the right method, and the realization of nirvana. That is the 4 foundations of mindfulness. What are the 4? Here, monks, a monk dwells contemplating the body as the body, ardent, clearly comprehending, and mindful, having put away covetousness and grief in regard to the world. He dwells contemplating feelings as feelings, ardent, clearly comprehending, and mindful, having put away covetousness and grief in regard to the world. He dwells contemplating the mind as the mind, ardent, clearly comprehending, and mindful, having put away covetousness and grief in regard to the world. He dwells contemplating phenomena as phenomena, ardent, clearly comprehending, and mindful, having put away covetousness and grief in regard to the world. Thus, the only path to liberation and realization of nirvana is to fully practice the four foundations of mindfulness, including body, feelings, mind, and phenomena. With the importance of the four foundations of mindfulness, the Buddha affirmed that a practitioner who diligently practices them can be freed from the sorrows and anxieties of life and ultimately realize nirvana. In the past, the Buddha taught meditation based on the four foundations of mindfulness, which involves relaxing all states of body and mind rather than concentrating. When the body and mind are relaxed and open, the practitioner can enter meditation and attain concentration. If the practitioner is still attached, even though they practice meditation, they will never attain concentration. When the body is open, the body and space are no longer two separate objects but become one. At this point, the breath flows in a very strange way. An inhaled or exhaled breath becomes much longer, and the practitioner feels like there is no place for the breath to go in and out, and the breath is now as delicate as a thin thread. At this moment, the mind begins to cease its fluctuations. The heartbeat becomes very slow because slow breathing causes the heartbeat to slow down. At this time, the practitioner begins to enter concentration, and the whole body becomes completely open. Thus, contemplation is not about concentrating to reflect on this body, but contemplation must now be understood as the reflection of a mirror. It is a pure, serene, gentle, and relaxed reflection without concentration. In the Four Foundations of Mindfulness Sutra, the Buddha taught very clearly that when we inhale, we should know we are inhaling. Or when we exhale, we should know we are exhaling. To put it in detail, when we first inhale, we should know we are inhaling. When inhaling a part of the breath, we should know we are inhaling a part of the breath. When inhaling half the breath, we should know we are inhaling half the breath. When inhaling 3/4 of the breath, we should know we are inhaling 3/4 of the breath. And when inhaling the whole breath, we should know we are inhaling the entire breath. When the breath temporarily stops, we should also know we are temporarily stopping the breath. Afterward, the whole body prepares to exhale, and we should know we are preparing to exhale. If the practitioner's practice is advanced, they will clearly see a gap between the inhalation and exhalation. In other words, before inhaling and transitioning to exhaling, the whole body prepares first. Therefore, the Buddha taught us to know this transition. When we fully exhale, we should know we have fully exhaled. And when the body prepares to inhale again, we should know the body is preparing to inhale again. In summary, when we exhale a short breath, we should know we are exhaling a short breath. Or when we inhale a short breath, we should know we are inhaling a short breath. When we exhale a long breath, we should know we are exhaling a long breath. And when we inhale a long breath, we should know we are inhaling a long breath. Observing the breath with mindfulness and clear comprehension helps the whole body become bright and free from all attachment and craving in this life, ultimately achieving the highest goal of liberation and enlightenment. That is just observing the breath, yet it has such benefits. So, when the breath is coarse, we should know the breath is coarse, and when the breath is subtle, we should know the breath is subtle. When the breath becomes more subtle and slow, we should know the breath is becoming more subtle and slow. Until the breath is the most delicate and subtle, we should know the breath is the most delicate and subtle. Then we enter concentration with this breath. Therefore, a practitioner who wants to enter concentration must know how to regulate the breath correctly. If the breath is regulated correctly, one can become a sate. Hence, from living and dying to practicing and attaining liberation, all are connected with our breath. For example, if we exhale but do not inhale, we lose our life. All the disorder and movement in the mind also come from the breath. And naturally, the cycle of birth and death or liberation and enlightenment of a person also starts from the breath. Anger, greed, and attachment also come from the breath because the breath is the main source of life for humans. For example, when anger or attachment arises, the breath becomes strong and the heartbeat quickens. So every change in the mind is a fluctuation of the breath. And each fluctuation of the breath causes our mind to fluctuate. So any calm or movement of the mind arises from the breath. Generally speaking, A person attains nirvana through the breath or sinks into the suffering of defilements also through the breath. The arising of desire also begins with the breath, so the breath is the main source of life for humans. The entire Buddhist teaching aims to help beings purify their body and mind to prepare for concentration, because without entering concentration, wisdom will never arise to directly perceive the truth. Only with direct perception of the truth can there be liberation and enlightenment. So a person practicing the 4 foundations of mindfulness who knows how to regulate the breath will easily enter concentration. Conversely, if they cannot regulate the breath, it will be difficult to enter concentration. Why? Because the body and breath are not 2 separate entities. They are inseparable. In the 4 Foundations of Mindfulness Sutra, the Buddha taught that when the breath begins to enter the nostrils, we should know it, meaning we should know the breath is beginning to enter, and we continue to know each phase of the breath until it is fully inside. Then we also know that the breath spreads throughout the cells and the entire body. When the breath transitions from oxygen O2 to carbon dioxide CO2 and begins to exhale, we should know it. When carbon dioxide reverses from the cells throughout the body to the lungs, we should know it. When the lungs prepare to exhale, we should know it. And when the breath is fully exhaled, we should know it completely. We should know each stage as it happens. Knowing as it is, not tracking it like counting breaths where the breath goes and we follow. The 4 Foundations of Mindfulness meditation does not practice this way. Here the Buddha taught knowing as the ultimate clear knowledge, which is not given by the Buddha but is obtained through practicing the 4 Foundations of Mindfulness. It does not depend on or pass through any gate of consciousness. It is knowledge that does not pass through sense bases, sense objects. So the Buddha affirmed that if practiced correctly, just in an instant there can be liberation and enlightenment at this point. In this world, outside the 4 Foundations of Mindfulness, no method can achieve it in an instant. Thus, this practice is not gradual, but an instantaneous awakening meditation. This is the real instant awakening meditation, as originally taught by the Buddha. However, if the practitioner lacks capability, practicing for 1 day, 1 week, 1 month, or 1 year still achieves the ultimate goal of liberation. Once there is knowing, any slight movement of the body is known. Remember, this is knowing, completely different from consciousness, which is the knowledge arising from consciousness, where consciousness distinguishes between subject and object. In other words, knowing uses wisdom to know, not consciousness. For example, when we inhale, exhale, or raise our hand, lower our hand, we know it. But if we mistake knowing for using effort to observe and follow the breath or the action of the hand, we fall into the realm of consciousness, which is consciousness, not knowing. Therefore, if the practitioner falls into consciousness, the path to liberation is still far away. Therefore, at the very beginning, if we have knowing, we have liberation in an instant. This is theoretical. In reality, no one has instant knowing because no one has the capability to have instant knowing immediately, but needs time to practice and change from personal experience. In conclusion, the Buddha taught beings to know each instant, to understand each small change in the breath with clear wisdom, meaning we know each small change in the breath. It is knowing each part of the inhalation, not knowing if not inhaled. So, what does it mean to contemplate the body as the body, to see it as it is? Here, the Buddha did not teach knowing to concentrate on the breath, because if we only concentrate on the breath, this is no longer knowing or wisdom. Because the Buddha taught to contemplate, to see the body as it is, it does not necessarily mean to see only the breath, but the whole body. Contemplating the body as the body means not just seeing the breath entering the nostrils, but seeing the breath entering and then seeing the changes throughout the body. For example, when the breath enters, the body is itchy on the back, the hand is in pain, or the chest is hot. At that specific moment, we should know all the changes throughout the body. When we clearly know the changes in the whole body, it includes our own breath. Although the Buddha taught contemplating the breath mainly, here we know our body, contemplating to see the body as it is. So whatever happens in the body, we must see it as it is. So, what does it mean to see as it is? The Buddha taught that seeing as it is means a moment before, we do not see, and a moment after it happens, we do not see. So seeing as it is means at the moment it happens, we receive it as it happens, not a moment before or after. So every moment, our whole body changes, and we see it as it is. If we see the change a moment before and cling to it, we will not know the change of the next moment. So, this seeing is no longer seeing as it is, but old seeing. For example, right now we start to take a breath. If we do not live truly to contemplate the body as the body, this seeing is no longer as it is because it has shifted a bit to the next moment. Therefore, if we focus on that part of the breath, the next part of the breath we will not know. Hence, a practitioner of the 4 foundations of mindfulness must skillfully awaken each moment to see clearly as it is. Thus, the successive moments of breath must be seen as it is each successive moment, continuously happening for each breath until the breath ends. In each small moment, we must know each small moment. Generally, each breath has hundreds of thousands or billions of small intervals, so we must know each 100,000 or billion as it is. This is real knowing, without mistake. Each small movement, each small operation, or each small fluctuation in our whole body must be clearly known as it is. Remember, this is knowing everything, but if falling into consciousness, that knowledge is insufficient, incomplete. Knowing in changes can be compared to the incremental increase, dt, in mathematics. Looking at a mathematical drawing, if we start at time t1 and keep adding a very small part dt increment, we have t2, and then add t2 with dt. We have t3 and so on until we have the whole drawing. Here, knowing is the same. At each moment, we also know, and the next moment we continue to know, and so on until we finish observing that event. Therefore, if we practice to understand, we unintentionally fall into consciousness, not knowing. Clear and thorough knowledge to know the whole body, including inhaling, exhaling, hand movement, foot movement, or the whole body from head to toe. We know all at once from head to toe, and inhaling and exhaling. If a practitioner only knows the breath or the hand or foot movement, this is divided knowledge, which is consciousness, not wisdom. Therefore, if we contemplate the body as the body by dividing it into parts, we fall into the depth of consciousness, and the practice will have no result. Therefore, knowing is to know the whole body and breath together, not isolated in any part. In summary, focusing means falling into consciousness. So to succeed, just relax. Do not concentrate on any part and know all. Thus, practicing the 4 foundations of mindfulness based on observing the breath is a wonderful practice. For this type of meditation, the practitioner's mind does not focus nor scatter. Why? Because clear knowledge through wisdom is neither scattered nor concentrated. If the practitioner focuses, they immediately fall into the realm of consciousness. Or if they scatter, they are now outside the present reality they are contemplating. So in this reality, neither scattered nor focused, it is knowing, meaning wisdom is clear. Since wisdom is not consciousness, it does not focus. This is the most basic and essential step to entering the Buddhist house. Therefore, just practicing this first step correctly, the practitioner will feel peaceful, free from all bondage of suffering and affliction immediately. That is why the Buddha affirmed that the 4 foundations of mindfulness meditation helps practitioners attain liberation and enlightenment in an instant. Therefore, practicing correctly, we will transform the body and mind each moment, and thus there is no moment we do not achieve peace. When we have knowing, each moment, the practitioner enjoys peace. Conversely, if not practicing correctly the whole life, the practitioner will never enjoy the taste of peace. If practicing mindfulness diligently and attentively, the practitioner will eliminate all attachments and cravings in the world. Why? For example, when we inhale, we know we are inhaling, and when we exhale, we know we are exhaling, so we do not cling to the inhalation. When exhaling, we know the next inhalation is coming, so we do not cling to the exhalation. This means our operation is always new. People mistakenly think inhaling and exhaling is repetitive, but in reality, each breath, whether inhaling or exhaling, is completely new because each inhalation brings new oxygen to nourish the body, and each exhalation expels new carbon dioxide CO2 outside. So if it were old, how could humans live? So if we observe very carefully, each moment we always have new changes, each small breath brings new life. Exhaling also, each breath continues to go out, And inhaling also, each breath continues to come in. In other words, our body changes every second or every moment, and thus life exists in this newness. So, according to the 4 foundations of mindfulness, human life never stops being old, because stopping means breaking the reality of life itself. Thus, according to the 4 foundations of mindfulness, the reality of human life is always new, never stopping, reflecting the powerful vitality of the universe. If a person stops any phenomenon, they unintentionally break the ongoing reality. Why? Because the ongoing reality never has a moment of old, as it only transitions in one direction of time, so the past moment is never grasped again. According to mathematics, the time t2 equals t1 plus dt, so each moment dt happens, it is impossible to find t1 again because it has passed. Therefore, the Buddha taught, the past has gone, never to be grasped again. People often mistakenly think that breathing is repetitive, so it is not new, but according to the 4 foundations of mindfulness meditation, although breathing is repetitive, it is never old because each breath brings new oxygen and expels new carbon dioxide. So breathing is always new. New breath brings oxygen flowing through the blood to every cell in the body, so the whole body renews. From recognizing the changes in breathing, we can perceive the true face of life and recognize all relationships in life clearly. Not only humans live with the newness every moment, but the universe also does. From the universe, birds flying, fish swimming, anything in the world of phenomena also renews. So if we live correctly with the newness in each moment, we will see clearly that the world is also transforming in newness like us. This is a very delicate and important point that people often ignore. For example, if we are looking at a friend right now, if after an hour you still see that friend as when you first met an hour ago, you are not practicing the 4 foundations of mindfulness. Why? Because people change more newly every moment, so each moment that friend has changed anew, not the same as before. Time never stops, always moving forward, so each breath has changed. Although the posture of that friend does not change much, in that hour they have breathed many times, causing the body, blood, heartbeat, nerves, cells, even thoughts to change that many times, not the same as we usually think. Each second or moment, they are a completely new person. If we contemplate deeply, then we and the whole world before us are always new, always transforming. So how can life be boring? One component leading to suffering and affliction is boredom. For example, driving this car for a long time becomes boring, losing interest. Living in one place for a long time becomes boring. Husband and wife see each other every day, become bored, and want to argue. Now, understanding the 4 foundations of mindfulness, we know that life is always changing, not stopping. Each passing moment, people change with the new moment. Therefore, the breath brings life to people. So each new breath will bring new life to us. Knowing this, how can there be boredom? How can there be the cause of suffering, discontent? And practicing correctly, the 4 foundations of mindfulness will lead practitioners straight to the ultimate goal of liberation and enlightenment. So, how to contemplate feelings as feelings to see them as they are. Just like contemplating the body as the body to see it as it is, the practitioner contemplates each passing breath to know that people change with each breath in and out. Here, feelings are the same. Any feeling is new because each new moment replaces the old feeling. For example, while walking we feel foot pain, so each moment we know the pain, the old pain goes away and is replaced by new pain. When we know, the knowing helps the practitioner escape the feeling of suffering, joy, or pain. Feelings are sensed in the body, so any happening in the body we know, but the happening and the knowing are not related. For example, the previous pain is not the next pain, and the next pain is not related to the following pain. Why? Because if we keep the sensation of the previous pain, we will not know the next pain. But the pains keep happening continuously every moment, so we know the pain each moment. Even the pain increases until we cannot walk anymore. In summary, knowing is not related to any pain sensation because feelings always change, and the knowing is outside, so we know the change every moment. Thus, thanks to knowing, we can sense the suffering and joy of our body thoroughly without confusion to see feelings as they are, meaning to see the feelings of suffering, joy, or neither suffering nor joy in our body. Therefore, in life, When we hear someone's bitter words, our hand bleeds or our head hurts. To sense the suffering and joy coming, we know all those things. When we know suffering, the difference is that we know suffering, but we are not the suffering. People often confuse that when there is pain and sorrow, they become the pain and sorrow instead of knowing the pain and sorrow, making them feel sorrowful. Now, if practicing the 4 foundations of mindfulness, we know the sorrow, meaning we maintain the distance between knowing and sorrow. For example, helping someone without achieving desired results makes us feel sad and dissatisfied. Sadness is because we identify with that sadness, meaning we think that sadness is part of us, not separating and standing outside the realm of knowing. Because if we know, whatever happens to the body and mind does not relate to knowing. Another example is applying knowing to sleep. When sleeping, if we know, meaning relaxing the whole body, we know the body is relaxing without adding or subtracting anything. At that moment, we can observe how our body sleeps. In other words, knowing is like another person observing each movement of the sleeping person. But here, the other person is ourselves observing ourselves. Since we know the whole body, we know clearly the body's movements to gradually transition into sleep. We know clearly from the feet to the hands and then to the head beginning to sleep slowly. At this point, we recognize the door between sleep and wakefulness. If we can practice diligently, we will identify clearly the boundary between beginning to sleep, sleeping, and from sleeping to waking. And if at least in our life we experience the transition between wakefulness and sleep, we will truly see ourselves sleeping, just like another person watching us sleep. When the body is still in the sleep, that wisdom is comparable to seeing life and death, meaning the moment we leave this body is like going from wakefulness to sleep, not much different. So in this life, if we practice clearly from waking to sleep, from wakefulness to sleep, we know our body is transitioning from waking to sleep. In other words, when we know we are sleeping, at that moment, we are no longer the sleeping person. Similarly, at death, a practitioner of the 4 foundations of mindfulness knows the body from life to death gradually, meaning the body dies to the extent we know the body dies. When the body completely dies, we know the body completely dies, and the knower is no longer the dying person. At that moment, we completely separate from the life and death of this body. Although speaking at length, the knower still remembers knowing each breath to know the body's changes. Therefore, human life is only in one breath, so observing the breath is most important. For example, if we are angry with someone, regulating the breath back, the anger immediately dissipates. Similarly, in our heart, desire arises, causing rapid breathing. Now regulating the breath back, the desire disappears. Generally in life, many times we have to face unfavorable things, but knowing how to regulate the breath can easily resolve all sadness and distress. Practicing mindfulness is practicing the 4 foundations of mindfulness, to know clearly the changes of body, feelings, mind, and phenomena happening in the present moment impartially, like a mirror reflecting only what is in front. For the practitioner to see it as it is, and thereby master the body, speech, and mind to subdue all worldly sorrows. For example, when the mind arises greed, we know the mind does arise in greed. When the mind does not arise greed, we know the mind does not arise greed. Anger and delusion are the same. Therefore, knowing whether the mind has greed or not, just know without needing to act, because when the conditions cease, the mind of greed or non-greed disappears by itself. Thus, seeing and knowing as it is seeing the true nature of all phenomena right at that moment, from psychology to physiology, without judgment, without adding egoistic views. For example, right now, seeing a lot of money, the mind arises greed. Now, based on the doctrine of dependent origination, meaning when this exists, that exists. When this ceases, that ceases. Because seeing money, this exists, the mind arises greed, that exists. Now, mindfulness to know the mind is in a state of greed, then let go of the greedy thought, this ceases, and the greedy mind also disappears, that ceases. Anger and delusion are the same, therefore mindfulness is the manual for spiritual life, a useful daily practice method for all practitioners wanting to eliminate greed, anger, and delusion. A person with mindfulness knows they are eating when eating, walking when walking, speaking when speaking, doing when doing. A person with mindfulness, whatever they do, is leisurely, proactive, careful, and neat, always following the spirit of righteousness and altruism. Therefore, they have a gentle, delicate, and serene demeanor. When speaking and interacting, they speak gently and honestly, not harming others' honor. Conversely, a person lacking mindfulness, full of wrongful thoughts, their work is careless and hasty, aiming high. Their words are boastful, arrogant, lacking honesty or biased, making others dislike and avoid them. Their words, actions, and thoughts originate from greed, arrogance, and lack of righteous awareness. Thus, mindfulness helps us wisely choose what to cultivate and develop, and of course, what to abandon. Mindfulness shows us the true nature of all phenomena. A person practicing mindfulness always acts wisely instead of reacting in ignorance, making life less stressful and naturally more peaceful. Mindfulness often goes hand in hand with clear comprehension, meaning the practitioner always stays awake to observe and understand what is happening right at that moment. Mindful awareness reminds people to be cautious in all thoughts, words, and actions to avoid harming themselves and others. In ancient times, a monk lived in a hut by a pond. One night, under the clear sky and bright moon, the monk saw a turtle climbing up from the pond. Suddenly, a jackal appeared. Seeing its prey, the jackal hurriedly ran to bite the turtle's leg. The turtle quickly withdrew its leg. The jackal bit the head. The turtle quickly withdrew its head. All 6 parts, head, 4 legs, and tail, were safely withdrawn into the shell. The jackal bit the turtle's body repeatedly and flipped it over and over, but the turtle was unharmed. Finally, the jackal got tired and had to leave. Seeing this, the monk realized that his practice was like the turtle withdrawing its head, meaning he had to master, control, and be cautious whenever the 6 senses encountered the 6 objects. By dwelling in mindfulness and diligently practicing, the monk soon attained arhatship. According to the middle-length discourses, Sutta number 10, the practice of the 4 foundations of mindfulness is often understood as the only path to liberation and enlightenment. But in reality, the only path mentioned by the Buddha is not the 4 foundations of mindfulness, but the Noble Eightfold Path. In the Dhammapada, verses 273 to 274, the Buddha taught, "Among all the paths, the Eightfold Path is the most excellent. This is the only path, there is no other path, to purify vision." Thus, the only path to liberation and enlightenment is the Noble Eightfold Path, and the 4 foundations of mindfulness, with its 4 bases of mindfulness, is just part of that path. In conclusion, although today journeys to send people into space and to the moon or distant planets are easily accomplished, the path to the peaceful nirvana is still far and requires much effort. But if the path we travel is sometimes monotonous, mindfulness will be the gentle light guiding us best to live happily and freely in this life. Right concentration. Right concentration is the final branch of the Noble Eightfold Path. Why the last? Because before practicing right concentration, the practitioner has already gone through the first 7 branches to purify the body and mind, living a life of moral and humanistic ethics, which means having morality, sila. From there, the practitioner practices letting go, always keeping the mind in the present moment, and maintaining mindfulness to achieve concentration, samadhi. Alternatively, the practitioner can practice in a seated meditation posture, binding the mind to one object for an extended period, without distraction, to attain concentration. The Noble Eightfold Path consists of 8 intertwined elements that complement each other, helping the practitioner reach the ultimate goal of liberation. Right concentration is the seed of right view because without concentration, wisdom, pan, cannot arise. However, once wisdom arises, concentration becomes more stable. In this way, right concentration is the fruit of right speech, right action, right livelihood, and right effort, because without morality, a pure and ethical human life, concentration cannot exist. But once the mind is settled, the practitioner can more easily let go and live a moral life. In other words, the 8 branches always rotate from cause to effect and from effect to cause, complementing each other, giving the practitioner the deep and strong energy to generate wisdom and directly perceive the truth. Practicing right concentration helps the practitioner understand the impermanent, suffering, and non-self nature of all phenomena in the universe. This understanding comes directly from the mind, not through books. Thus, the practitioner will clearly recognize that joy and suffering are not the self, but merely the operations of the five aggregates, skandhas. When there is joy, just know it is joy, not as I am joyful. When pain comes, know the body is in pain, not I am in pain. The impermanence and decay are not the self or the ego. For ordinary people, impermanence leads to suffering. But once the mind is settled and wisdom arises, the practitioner will see clearly that the world is impermanent and non-self, without anything truly real. Therefore, if one clings to the self, thinking the body and mind are I or mine, and all possessions are mine, they can never achieve right concentration. In the Samadhi Sutta, the Buddha explained how to truly understand the Four Noble Truths, Katvari Arya Satjani, as follows. Monks develop concentration. A monk who has concentration knows and sees things as they really are. And what does he know and see as it really is? He knows and sees this is suffering. He knows and sees this is the origin of suffering. He knows and sees this is the cessation of suffering. He knows and sees this is the path leading to the cessation of suffering. Thus, without right concentration, we cannot fully develop the Noble Eightfold Path, nor can we truly understand the truth of suffering, the truth of the origin of suffering, and cannot realize Nibbana. The crucial role of right concentration in liberation was further emphasized by the Buddha in the Mahaparinibbana Sutta, before his final passing into parinirvana, as follows. Monks, it is because of not understanding, not penetrating four things that I, as well as you, have wandered so long in this round of birth and death. What for? Not understanding noble virtue, not penetrating noble concentration, not penetrating noble wisdom, and not penetrating noble liberation. When the six doors, sense faculties, are wide open, external winds, sense objects, blow in and disturb the lamp's flame on the table. When the flame is disturbed, the light is not bright and clear. Similarly, if we let the six senses freely contact the six objects, delusive thoughts invade and disturb our peaceful mind. When the mind is filled with delusive thoughts, greed, hatred, and delusion arise, causing suffering. When the mind's lamp is dimmed, we cannot see the true nature of the object. Therefore, to dispel delusive thoughts and stabilize the mind, right concentration helps us train the mind to see the true nature of the object and eliminate it. Hence, right concentration is also called calming meditation, samatha, meaning stopping. In the past, the Buddha attained enlightenment through meditation. Therefore, meditation is about looking back, reflecting on oneself to find one's true self once the mind has calmed down to see that true self. Engaging in daily activities drains mental energy. Sitting down and clearing the mind allows us to see phenomena accurately. With meditation, wisdom arises, leading to liberation. Meditation includes 9 levels. 1. 4 levels of the Rupa Dhatu, form realm. 1st jhana, 2nd jhana, 3rd jhana, 4th jhana. 2. 4 levels of the Arupa Dhatu, formless realm, boundless space, boundless consciousness, nothingness, neither perception nor non-perception. 3. Cessation of perception and feeling. For detailed information, see the sections above. In conclusion, in the Noble Eightfold Path, the Buddha first introduced right view for people to have the correct understanding of themselves in the universe. With the correct understanding, people do not lean towards illusions of the self. Then the Buddha introduced right intention to help beings avoid thoughts related to greed, hatred, and delusion. The first 2 parts help the mind stay away from desire and passion. Next, in the practice section, the Buddha introduced right speech, right action, and right livelihood to help beings return to living a pure and ethical life. Living a pure life with a light and serene mind allows the practitioner to achieve concentration and from there, liberation, directly perceiving the truth. On the other hand, living in an unwholesome manner only leads to wrong concentration and of course no liberation, just like Devadatta in the past. Chinese Zen Buddhism has a story as follows. Xianyan, who understood countless scriptures, still had not awakened. One day, Gishin said, "You are indeed intelligent and talented, but tell me, where do you come from?" Xianyan went home, searching through all the scriptures for the answer. At the end of this question is the question of where the universe comes from. Unable to answer himself, he sought out Gishin and pleaded, "Please reveal to me the secret of this saying." Gishin replied, "If I explain it clearly to you now, later you will resent me. So, Shangyan abandoned everything to return to his hometown to dig the earth. One day, after 10 years while digging weeds, he struck a shard and picked it up, throwing it into a bamboo grove. The shard hit a dry bamboo and made a special sound. Shangyan was suddenly enlightened. He understood where he came from and where the universe came from. He knelt down, bowed towards Gishan and said, "Master, your kindness is immense. If you had explained it then, how could I have this wonderful experience today?" Indeed, sudden enlightenment or awakening is still worldly, but Buddhism focuses on realization, becoming a sage. Buddha's teachings are never secret, very clear, step by step, helping practitioners practice according to their capacity and strength. However, achieving the ultimate goal of liberation and enlightenment is not easy, requiring the practitioner to genuinely renounce all bodily and mental desires. From there, applying the Noble Eightfold Path, the path to enlightenment is complete, based on the process of liberation through morality, sila, concentration, samadhi, and wisdom, panya. Morality leads beings to live a pure, ethical life within the framework of human ethics, having right speech, right action, and right livelihood. After fully practicing morality, the practitioner continues with concentration, including right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. Finally, developing insight wisdom by thoroughly practicing right view and right intention. Fully practicing the Noble Eightfold Path helps the practitioner realize the Four Noble Truths completely and escape the cycle of birth and death. The results of practicing the Noble Eightfold Path are proportional to the effort. If the practitioner practices 20%, they achieve 20% happiness and peace. Practicing 50% brings 50% happiness and peace. And thoroughly practicing 100% leads to liberation and enlightenment, becoming a sage. The Noble Eightfold Path is the only path to escape the cycle of birth and death. So the Buddha taught the highest path is the Noble Eightfold Path. The highest truth is the Four Noble Truths. This is the only path. There is no other path leading to purity of vision. Follow this path to soon escape all delusion and suffering. Due to the importance of the Noble Eightfold Path, the Buddha told Subhadra, his last disciple before his passing, "O Subhadra, in any doctrine and discipline where there is no Noble Eightfold Path, there cannot be found a first, second, third, or fourth degree of saintliness. But in any doctrine and discipline where there is the Noble Eightfold Path, there can be found the first, second, third, and fourth degree of saintliness. In this doctrine and discipline, O Subhadra, there is the Noble Eightfold Path. Therefore here can be found the first, second, third, and fourth degree of saintliness. Other sects are devoid of true ascetics, but if these monks live rightly, the world will not be devoid of arhats." Practicing the Noble Eightfold Path is the most effective way to increase worldly merit for everyone. But if practiced thoroughly, the Noble Eightfold Path can lead the practitioner to liberation, becoming a sage. Because of its importance, the Buddha affirmed that the Noble Eightfold Path is the only way, with no second or third path in this world, to help beings escape suffering and achieve the ultimate goal of liberation and nirvana. The Buddha used his life as the focal point for practice, based on personal experience through seeing and understanding thoroughly. He saw the functions of the Noble Eightfold Path surpassing two ways of living. One side is indulging in worldly pleasures and becoming entangled in them, and the other is self-mortification, suppressing the body to the extent of losing the sensory faculties activity, mistakenly thinking that this is the path to liberation. Because the Four Noble Truths are truths, not a philosophy, the Noble Eightfold Path is a practice project for self-realization. Practicing it thoroughly will undoubtedly bring immense practical benefits to humans in modern society. In the Majjhima Nikaya, the Buddha explained, "The Dhamma that the Tathagata has realized is indeed profound, difficult to perceive, difficult to understand, peaceful, sublime, beyond logic, subtle, comprehensible only by the wise. Therefore, the truth cannot be explained by the limited language of humans, but only through experience." So, the Buddha did not teach everything he knew. One day, in a certain forest, the Buddha picked up a handful of leaves and said, "Monks, what I have taught you is comparable to these leaves in my hand, while what I have not taught is like all the leaves in the forest." Samyutta Nikaya. The Buddha only taught what he deemed necessary for beings to have the means to realize the truth themselves, at which point wisdom will shine, understanding everything, just like all the leaves in the forest. Thus, the Tathagata's teachings are just a means, a finger pointing to the moon. But the means are not the end. The means are the cause, while the end is the result. The means are false, while the end is true. The greatest ignorance of humans is mistaking the means for the end. Therefore, the Buddha's followers should use the means to reach the end, using the finger to see the moon. But don't mistake the means for the end. Don't look at the finger and forget the moon, and don't mistake the scriptures for the truth. Don't look at the finger pointing to the moon and forget the wonderful light emanating from the moon. Therefore, when achieving the end, discard the means, like discarding the raft after crossing the river to reach the shore of enlightenment, not carrying it on the shoulders, adding more burden and suffering. A person practicing the Noble Eightfold Path gains immense benefits. If an entire family practices the Noble Eightfold Path, the whole family lives in humanistic ethics, with harmony and happiness. If society practices the Noble Eightfold Path, that society will be peaceful, without crime, with people treating each other with respect and kindness. Today, Japan and Singapore are nations with very high ethical standards. People are self-respecting, orderly, honest, without theft, without crime. They inherit and continue to practice a very practical education from a young age, so everyone grows up within the framework of ethics and responsibility. The world today is developing in all aspects. Many doctrines, philosophies, and Eastern and Western theories may no longer be suitable for modern civilized society. However, the Noble Eightfold Path, despite over 2,500 years, still stands firm and continues to play a crucial role in the lives of people worldwide. In the Majjhima Nikaya, the Buddha taught, the Tathagata teaches only two things, suffering and the end of suffering. So as long as humans suffer, the Noble Eightfold Path remains the guide for everyone to live correctly, in accordance with the truth, refining their body, speech, and mind, transforming life from suffering to happiness and peace. Practicing the Noble Eightfold Path not only brings immense benefits to individuals, but can also bring harmony, mutual respect, order, peace, and tranquility to nations and societies. Learning the Noble Eightfold Path cannot stop at the level of investigation or understanding, because the Noble Eightfold Path is not a philosophy, but a practice method. It needs to be experienced in life to cultivate humanistic ethics for each person and transform worldly life into happiness, joy, and freedom. However, the ultimate goal of the Noble Eightfold Path remains to lead people to liberation, attaining peaceful and free nirvana, and never being reborn again. Live without anger, without resentment, without blame. Live with a smile amidst challenges and hardships. Live striving to catch the dawn's light. Live harmoniously with those around you. Live as dynamic, but not disturbed. Live as loving, but not entangled. Live upright, indifferent to fame and wealth, an unwavering mind amidst the ever-changing life.